country where the parliament is not sitting. What is going on?
I'm not sure that this is to enable parliament sit. It's to declare.
Very well. Yes, I take it that's really in your
so if I would.
It is important to place on record that both the plaintiff and the Attorney General have complied with these orders, and this court is able to complete hearing of this suit if the Speaker chooses to file no processes. For the above reasons, the application is refused.
Lord, we are extremely grateful.
So, Mr.
Lord, we are grateful.
So, Mr. Sorry, will you be filing anything, or should we hear without you?
Oh, no, I don't have instructions on that matter, but especially so that if my lady looks at the affidavit that I filed, I said the order was served on the Speaker on Monday, so he has 7 days. I'll speak with him to draw his attention to the courts.
Exceptional circumstances that would flow from the effect of the ruling of the Speaker of Parliament declaring the 4 seats vacant and a determination not to allow the MPs to remain in Parliament. What are some of the effects that weighed on our minds as exceptional circumstances that were alluded to in the ruling? The 4 constituencies of Amenfi Central, Fomena, Aguna West, and Suhum in the Western region, Ashanti region, Central region, and Eastern regions of Parliament are made up of hundreds of thousands of Ghanaians who had queued to elect these members of Parliament to represent their interests in Parliament as their voices. By declaring that their duly elected representatives in Parliament had vacated their seats for acts that were interpreted within the light of Article 97(1)(g) by the Speaker, the Speaker was actually enforcing this interpretation of Article 97(1)(g) against those hundreds of thousands of Ghanaians, and not just the 4 people that sit in Parliament. We have considered the application and find that the grounds supporting the application have no merit because of the very explicit and clear directions of the 1992 Constitution, specifically Article 2, Article 130, and Article 296, and established decisions of the Supreme Court from decades of the country's constitutional history. Grant of orders beyond 10 days. The Speaker's lawyer urges that because of Order 25, Rule 18 of the High Court Civil Procedure Rules 2004, CI 47, that enjoins high courts to grant injunctions and other preservation orders for 10 days in the first instance if heard ex parte, and without notice to one party summoned before the court. The Supreme Court was also enjoined to grant the ex parte order for 10 days as a matter of rules and practice.
Well, as was expected, good morning from our studios here at Adesawe in Accra. The Chief Justice, and together with her panel, had the Speaker's application. And what we have been playing to you is a ruling of that 5-member panel. Welcome to the Key Point here on TV3. On this program, we discuss the most topical issues of the week with our well-informed, passionate, committed Ghanaian citizens who want the development of this country in many ways. We're live on 3FM 92.7, also on DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. We're live on X as well. As you heard, the Supreme Court dismissed that application by the Speaker of Parliament, asking the court to vacate its ruling that held the Speaker's declaration of the 4 seats in Parliament vacant. Now, in that ruling, which we played portions of it to you right now, a 5-member panel of the court held that the Speaker's application amounted to, quote, a misinformation and misapprehension of the law. Misinformation and misapprehension of the law. Now, according to the court, the Speaker's submission that the court had no jurisdiction in the matter was conceived because the matter in question was clear case of constitutional interpretation. Now, fundamental question is, if you recall, this conversation about whether the Supreme Court really was the right court to hear this matter was one of the issues that some of my guests raised prior to this hearing. Well, the Chief Justice and her panel said that it was a misconception of the understanding of the law. Speaker Bagben's application aimed to nullify the Supreme Court's decision that temporarily halted his ruling on these 4 seats. The Speaker also sought to set aside that writ filed by Alexander Penyomakin, which had requested judicial intervention to prevent the Speaker from issuing further declarations on this disputed seats matter. This morning, we would have a conversation in the aftermath of the Speaker's application being thrown out, pending the hearing of the substantive matter. What next? Especially when Parliament has now been recalled to convene on November 7. The Speaker is giving that notice, citing Article 1123 of the 1992 Constitution and the Standing Orders 5 and 53. We'll have a conversation because as you might rightly be aware, there is also another pending suit in court to prevent the recall of Parliament. That matter is yet to be heard. A private citizen is the one who is in court challenging those also challenging the Speaker's authority in declaring these 4 seats vacant. There are concerns that many have that have been expressed on this program as to what precedence this is setting. Not so much about whether it is wrong or right, but are we ready for this kind of conundrum in our democracy? That's the question on the minds of my guests who will be joining me this morning. Also coming up here on The Key Point, the University Teachers Association of Ghana, they've suspended their strike to drum home the concerns over illegal mining. Well, UTAG, for many, the conscience, the only reference point for the vanguard of the conscience of the people when it comes to illegal mining. They gave reasons why they've called off the strike, but there are others who disagree with them because there's no clear evidence of the fight against illegal mining improving in any way. So what is happening? What is going on the ground with the fight against illegal mining? Well, because of all the issues happening in Parliament, we took our eyes off the ball a bit. But I'll show you something this morning. So stay with us here on Key Point. As always, we're live on a number of radio stations across the country. You're an integral part of the program. Let's hear from you. Send us a message. We'll read it the best way possible. On behalf of the rest of the team, I welcome you to The Key Point. We're back shortly after the quick break. My guests will join me in the studio. The conversation starts right now. Stay with us.
Million children have benefited from free SHS. Protect free SHS. Vote Dr. Baumia #1 on the ballot.
Santex and Crown Paints. Excellent paint that is resistant to peeling, mold, algae, and fungus. It comes in a wide range of colors with high opacity, high spread rate, and dries fast with no afterpaint stench. Santex and Crown Paints are distributed by Bamson Company Limited. Locate us at Sickens House, Old Fatima Road, South Industrial Area, Accra, or any of our branches in Atabraka, East Legon, Tema, and Adum in Kumasi. Call or WhatsApp us on 0573839640. Santex and Crown Paint. It's not just paint, it's personal.
Papa Sammy! I beg, if you find something small, give us.
Bro Sammy, you see, no be say boys no one do nothing and just they rely on handouts. Just no deep.
I understand the hustle. Hope they come. John Mahama, they come do the National Apprenticeship Program where he go sort you guys.
Brother Sammy, waiting with that.
John Mahama knows say no be everybody way won't work for office. Like me.
That one day is true.
Under the National Apprenticeship Program, young men and women where they won't learn craft will be enrolled under the program and attached to a senior craftsman who will train them for free.
I beg you, mechanic day inside. Me like this. I don't want to learn mechanical, but the course no.
Mechanics day inside. Organizing, dressmaking, fabric making, catering, hairdressing, tiling, painting. What they even sweet about this whole thing they say, when you plead, the NDC government go make sure say they go give you certificate where you go fit take go look for job anywhere. That's sweet.
Oh, that's be one waffle.
Another one waffle thing be say, when you plead, the NDC government go set you up with startup capital and equipment to make sure you can start your own business.
Wow! I dey go shopping my town wait 7th December.
Vote for change. Vote for John Mahama and the NDC.
This Sunday on Hot Issues.
Would you say that Speaker Bagbin was wrong in his decision to vacate the seats in the first place?
If I were in the chamber, I probably would have suggested to him that he should look at it again.
Is what we see today a failure on leadership?
We are demonstrating the worst part of us. For me, we are moving away from the values of Parliament.
Can we trust the current Electoral Commission to deliver a free and fair election?
Do we have any reason not to trust them?
Are you a violent man?
I'm generally not a violent man, but I'm fully in support of using whatever means to enforce the law.
Hot Issues shows Sundays at 2 p.m. on TV3.
TV3, first in news.
This is the show that brings finality to all the critical issues. It is the stage where all the facts are checked, issues thoroughly interrogated, opinions shaped, and debates settled. But over here, we do more than just talk. We resolve problems. We hold those in power accountable. We address all the key happenings in society, from politics to health to education to everything you deem important. And we will center the voice of the ordinary Ghanaian. This is the show that sets the agenda.
Agenda shows Mondays at 9 p.m. on TV3.
TV3, first in news.
Flavor, spices, color, and creativity is what you're going to be seeing in this kitchen.
We show working.
We are here to showcase our culinary skills and creativity.
Before cooking was originated, we were already cooking in our mother's womb.
We are here to support TV3 with the aroma. Nobody will work for year today, but the aroma will sack them from their offices.
Winning. Who's winning? Who's winning? Who's winning? Now, will the technical universities do it for the judges and for the rest of us?
Kitchen Wars is brought to you by Kivo Foods, Everpack, Mazim Foods, Miss Cookie Spices, Chana.
Somebody say pull up! Them finna. Angloga, Dagby, Keta, Dabala, Denu, Aflao. Get ready for the biggest showdown. This Hogbe 2024 is going to be full of energy. It's the Hogbe Music Jam live from Early Beach Resort, Dagby, on Saturday, 2nd November from 8 p.m. is going to be magical. Come see live performances from Jafinga, Agbeshi, Chief One, and the man himself, the multiple award-winning globe-trotting TGMA Artist of the Year, the BIM Nation President, Starboy.
This is where conversations ignite and stories inspire.
What mental state do you think a woman needs to be to get to the point of saying, I'm just gonna hit and run?
The educational system, it wasn't rich enough to support that dream.
We bring together incredible women from all walks of life who for making waves and lifting each other up.
Personal lives are even now affecting things like, marriages, relationships.
It takes women some maybe 140 years to attain the same leadership as men.
It's real talk, real fun, and a whole lot of love.
The Ladies Circle shows Saturdays at 6 p.m. on TV3.
Brought to you by Yaz Sanitary Pad, MTN,
Woodin,
Cowbell Coffee, Betway.
Thursday, November 7, get ready to party like never before. An old school night you won't forget. It's the Onia Throwback Party, bringing you the best of hip life and high life. Live band pumping out the classics, cocktail corner to keep the drinks flowing, barbecue and small chops to refuel the body, and live performances from the legends themselves. Kofinti, KK Fusu, Aketeche, Tiny, Joe Frazier. Where? Happening live at the Bayview Village Atomic Roundabout from 8 p.m. For tickets or table reservations, call 0243-868184 or dial *713*14# to book, or pick it up at the gate for a cool 50 Ghana cedis. So get your tickets, call your friends, and let's relive the best of the old school at the Onia Throwback Party. See you on Thursday, November 7 at Bayview. The Onia Throwback Party is brought to you by Obwas.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Do I live in your mind? Yes? Am I a prophet? So I go over to this at your heart now.
Watch The Bachelors and stand a chance to win home appliances as well as many other amazing prizes every week. Answer daily questions correctly at the end of every episode via the WhatsApp number 0247 120 633 to be a winner.
Betty!
So stay tuned and you can get your hands on some amazing prizes weekly. The Bachelors, showing Tuesday to Thursday at 9 p.m. only on TV3.
Besides the cash prize, the perks that comes with winning, the trip abroad, the top intern also gives you the opportunity to gain advanced studies in any field around the globe.
Are you the next top intern? The Media General Registration Portal is now open to the public. Graduate with at least a second-class upper degree from any reputable university can apply for this year's Top Intern competition. Simply scan the QR code on your screen to submit your nomination.
Thanks to the Top Intern, I have transitioned from an intern to a Stardust officer here at Media General. This competition doesn't only enhance your skills, it opens doors for real career opportunities.
The Top Intern takes you beyond the internship.
Welcome back to Key Point on TV3. We're live on 3FM 92.7. Also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on DSTV channel 279 all across the world on 3news.com. There are many of you anticipating this morning's conversation, as has always been the case on every Saturday. And I want to specially welcome all of you joining us on television and also on radio. My name is Alfred Okanse, and my guest trickling in right now to also join in the conversation. But let's set off the tone for the conversation this morning. Give you an idea of exactly the position that the Chief Justice communicated for and on behalf of her panel on the Speaker's application seeking to set aside the decision or the ruling by the Supreme Court in reference to his decision to declare the 4 seats vacant some 2 weeks or a little over 2 weeks ago. This is the Chief Justice delivering the ruling of her panel earlier this week. Take a look.
It is important to place on record that both the plaintiff and the Attorney General have complied with these orders, and this court is able to complete hearing of this suit if the Speaker chooses to file no processes. For the above reasons, the application is refused.
Lord, we are extremely grateful.
So, Mr.
Lord, we are grateful.
So, Mr. Sorry, will you be filing anything? Or should we hear without you?
Oh, no, I don't have instructions on that matter, but especially so that if my lady looks at the affidavit that I filed, I said the order was served on the speaker on Monday. So he has 7 days. I'll speak with him to draw his attention to the course.
We'll be doing more of breaking down all the issues that happened within the week, and then also getting the conversation going. Joining me in the studio right now is private legal practitioner and a lecturer at the Ghana School of Law, and also what I would describe him as a passionate Ghanaian. It's been a while he's been on this show. It's been over 1 year now. Bobby Banson. Yes, is private legal practitioner. It's a lecturer at the Ghana School of Law. Counsel, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Alfred. Thank you.
It's good to have you. It's been a while. Indeed. Also joining us this morning is the Member of Parliament for the South Dai constituency. He is also a private legal practitioner. He's a member of a number of committees in this 8th Parliament. The Honorable Nelson Roxon Dafiamepo, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to my co-panelists. And good morning to my people in Pekik-Pali-Pove Tongo.
Indeed. I know right from here you go and visit them.
Yes.
Also joining me is a private legal practitioner, one of the foremost human rights lawyers that we have in this country. He's also a lecturer. He's a leader of one of 3 individual bondholder groups and the convener of the Kumipre Reloaded demonstration. Is one that many would describe without mistake as a passionate Ghanaian, for that matter. Martin Pebble, good morning to you, sir. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Kansi. Good morning. It's good to be here. Being on your show, the show most watched by Ghanaians, right? And of course, let me do the usual signature tune, right? Let me greet Gamanche, Kinteki Teku Churu II. Yeah? Gamanche is asking duty bearers the question, how can one woman have so much money under her bed? The case of Cecilia Dapa, we must get justice. One woman with so much money, dollars, under her bed. Dollars, veritable dollars. And we are still here dancing up and down, not doing much. Number 2, let me remind Auditor General Johnson, the 52.5 billion Ghana cedis report. Where is the 52.5 billion cedis? The money that is said to have been sent to GCB. You promised on December 4, 2020 that you were going to find that money and issue a report. So it's almost 4 years. 4 years. Is there any wonder that this economy is junk now? A junk economy? Because if such money can be lost for 4 years, you cannot find that money. Is there any wonder? Okay, number 3, let me greet Sophia Kufu Yasantwa. We are very grateful for your stepping out of your corner, breaking the glass ceiling, because for a former Chief Justice to be so active in our governance issues, okay, it's such an admirable thing that she's done. Admirable is even an understatement. I'll find a better word. We are very grateful, because let's not forget, she's the president's relation. Yeah, Sophia Kufu is related to the president. Yet you see that, no, she doesn't think this is about family and friends. Her cousin is not doing the right thing, and she's not shy to come out and say this is bad governance. So we should be very, very, appreciative and commend her for that bold exercise of her civic responsibilities. And of course, Osia dear your Dr. Ajiman Bedu the second, Domahini. Yes, Domahini. Thank you. More fire, Domahini. And finally, Nana Kwesi Bosompra, the only chief to have come out boldly to ask the EC to do the forensic audit. Yes, so Nana Kwesi Bosompra, Nana Gosohini, we are grateful. Oh, and Mr. Kansi, finally, I've lost a classmate of mine, law school, Bright Obimini. Yeah, Bright Obiminu is very, very sad. You know, my mates, all of us are really devastated. For 1 week, we have a WhatsApp platform. The page is in dead silent. Bright was so vivacious. I mean, very friendly, nice guy. Nice, good chap. He died. It's such a big blow to us.
May his soul rest in perfect peace.
Amen. Our condolences to their family.
Indeed. And thank you very much, Martin Pepo, for joining us. Also is in studio with us is a professor of political science, also an internationally respected governance expert. He's the president of the University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG, University of Ghana chapter, Professor Ransford Jampo. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Today, my preliminary remarks will be very brief. See, well-meaning Ghanaians should be concerned when a whole Supreme Court appeared to be overly worried about the potential non-representation of some people for less than 2 months, while other people from Saul have been denied representation for close to 4 years. You see, you are worried that some people are going to be denied representation for just less than 2 months. So worried. But others have been denied representation for 4 years. And we seem to have been quiet over this. And I'm saying well-meaning Ghanaians should be worried about this, because it shows a certain double standardness that festers the derogatory perception that people have about the courts. It festers a certain double standardness that festers the derogatory perception that people have about the courts, as shown by the various Afrobarometer surveys that have been conducted. And we should all be worried. My serious worry is that the courts themselves do not appear to be worried about some of these things. And it is worrying, because this is the institution that we respect, that we expect that they will be arbiters and keep society together when there is conflict. And so, in my view, they shouldn't show that kind of double standardness. How do you say? I mean, I heard the Chief Justice pontificating so loudly about the potential non-representation of some constituencies. Now, I kept asking myself, so, Madam Chief Justice, are you aware that the people of Saul have been denied representation in Parliament for 4 years? Why are we not giving that same energy and zeal? Why are we not attaching that same energy and zeal in addressing this matter? I was told the matter was sent to Supreme Court, then it was sent to return to High Court. After 3 years, the High Court says it has no jurisdiction, and then they are starting again. And we are here, we are watching, as if we haven't seen. Yet, when it is about other people's matter, we pontificate so forcefully. Please, the double standardness is enough, because, like I said, it festers the derogatory perception that people have about the court. And as people who are concerned Ghanaians, we should not sit down and allow some of these things to go on without commenting or without condemning or without drawing attention to them so that they are redressed. I expect the Supreme Court itself to be concerned about how people perceive it and how they function.
Well, we'll hear from the Ghana Bar Association as we go on this matter of perception, whether it also strikes them as a matter of concern or not. But thank you, Professor Ransford Jampo, giving us clear indication of the path that you're taking. In fact, on this thinking of what is happening or what has happened with Saul, you're not alone in this. Professor Kweku Azari is also just sending me something right now. He's going to be... Yeah, he will. He
unofficial,
yeah,
unofficial ambassador.
Indeed. He hopefully, as we go on, when his time permits him, he's going to be joining us for a quick input on this matter. Also, Dr. Arthur Kennedy is a member of the NPP. He's also going to be joining us together with Dr. Rashid Rahman, who's also joining us on Zoom in a bit. He is Executive Director of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs, and we would have a couple of lawyers also joining us on the telephone or via Zoom. So it's going to be a rich conversation this morning, as has always been the case. We'll talk about your apology later, because I saw something on social media about...
Okay. You just
yes, that's a quick one. Because yes, that apology that came to
well, let me just react to it quickly. I'm sure as we were leading the UTAG...
That's what is on the screen. For the benefit of those listening to us on the radio, retraction apology to Professor Ransford Jampo. This is by Salam Mustafa, the National Youth Organizer of the MPP. It says he alleged that you were working with the NDC to disenfranchise students using the UTAG strike action as a decoy. Well, he says he's sorry. I see that you're forgiving him too.
Well, I mean, fortunately, I have 3 lawyers here, and 2 of them are my friends, apart from Bobby Banson, that he's not even smiling to me. Yes, we saw somebody, the MPP National Youth Organizer, issuing a press statement making some wild allegations against me and insinuating that me, for example, I am so powerful enough to be able to rally the entire populace of university professors, some of whom taught me. I can commandeer all of them to follow me, to use them to go and do the bidding of the NDC, and to use a university strike as a decoy to different, so that students will not come to school and then they cannot vote, and then made other baseless allegations, against me. When I heard, I said, you see, my lawyers have always told me that I should not be thinking of suing men of straw. But I realized that this guy, he had something. And so we were going to, in fact, I was so determined and so fired. But I didn't know that you such people, you have to give them the chance to retract. And so I was on my lawyers. You see, my lawyer, my lawyer is Gary Nimakon. Gary Nimakon is an MPP lawyer. So when I told him, said, Prof, I'm begging you, I'm conflicted. And this particular matter, I belong to the MPP, and then the guy is National Youth Organizer, and blah, 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 blah. And so then I had to go out of my way to look for another lawyer. And I was so determined to ensure that I bring finality to some of the very baseless and useless things that some people say on social media, hide under the cloak of the facelessness of social media to be saying. But, he chose to render an apology in line with the demands of my lawyer. My lawyer forwarded it to me. I had a lot of people who insisted that regardless of the apology, we should still go to court. But then also, I'm a Christian. I am not a litigant, and I follow Christ. And the Christ that I follow was defamed even more than me. And so I had to choose between going to court to still punish him, to prevent other people from doing same tomorrow, and then forgive him. And like I said, as a Christian, I decided to choose the path of forgiveness over vengeance. So I've forgiven him, but I'm hoping that no one does so again. And let us not be in the young people. I'm telling you. You see, we have you don't know where we have come from. For some of us, we are not born with silver spoon in our mouths. We have suffered, we have labored. It has only taken the grace of God and hard work to bring us this far. And so you should be learning from us rather than sitting and being paid coins by politicians and being used and abused to be used to malign and to to be saying things against people that you should be learning from. It will never augur well with you if you do that.
Well, thank you for forgiving him. You are done. Yes. Thank you for forgiving him. So we would move on now. Okay. So earlier in the week, the Supreme Court dismissed the objection from the Speaker of Parliament's legal team to Justice Yao Gao's presence on the panel, amongst other things. In fact, the conclusive matter and declaration by the courts this week is that the Speaker's application to have the Supreme Court set aside their earlier declaration on his own decision on the 4 seats that he declared vacant, they threw it out. This was what the Speaker went to court seeking. I want to put that on the screen right now. The demands of the Speaker in there to set aside the processes and proceedings in the Supreme Court with respect to the particular suit that was against him, and vacating the orders of the courts dated the 18th of October. Also, the writ by which the plaintiff has purportedly invoked the court's original jurisdiction was incompetent, and the court had no jurisdiction to entertain that suit before the courts. And then, finally, that the courts base its reasoning on Article 2, 130 and 296 of the 1992 Constitution. That's why the Supreme Court rejected it. The Supreme Court also said the 8 grounds of the Speaker's application had no merit as well. Now, let's hear from the Chief Justice again, delivering another aspect of that ruling on the matter of the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court in hearing this matter that was brought before it by Alexander Penyomakin, who is the leader of the MPP caucus in this parliament. Take a look.
It can be seen from the very first page of the 1992 Constitution that the most fundamental and hallowed right of every Ghanaian that the 1992 Constitution gives and jealously guards is that when anyone, including the President and Vice President, is embarking on an act, on any act that violates any provision of the Constitution, or if anyone is of the considered opinion that any law or rule enacted by any legislative body breaches the Constitution, that person can run to the Supreme Court for enforcement of the Constitution. That person does not even need to be directly affected by that act or law. This Supreme Court regularly exercises this original and exclusive jurisdiction for citizens of this country.
So the Supreme Court, according to the Chief Justice declaration there, always exercises its original jurisdiction on matters, including a matter like this. Well, joining us as well in the studio is Kingsley Amoakwa Boedu, is a private legal practitioner. He's also a lecturer and also a member of the Legal and Communications Bureau of the New Patriotic Party. Lawyer Kingsley Amoakwa Boedu, good morning. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning to my fellow panelists. I think people have had a bite, initial comments.
Well, I was going to come to you, don't worry.
What I want to say is that I was laughing in stitches when my friend said Jesus Christ was vilified and all that, so he's forgiven. And once I was laughing, and also I'd say, well, that's very good. That shows a mark of a Christian.
Okay.
So, that's right.
Why? Well, thank you.
Does it concern you?
Yes, of course it concerns
you. Indeed. Okay. Obviously, being a member of the MPP, definitely. Thank you so much for making the time to join us as well. That matter of jurisdiction, that's briefly, because one of the major issues that came up when Alexander Penyamakin went to the Supreme Court was this matter of whether the Supreme Court really was the right court to be invoked in this matter. The Supreme Court, as you heard the Chief Justice there, made a clear and emphatic declaration on that they had jurisdiction to hear this, or the original jurisdiction gives them the powers to hear this particular case. Why did you argue otherwise?
I'm not. So let's put it this way. I do not exactly fault the Supreme Court for saying it has jurisdiction. Mm-hmm. I do not do so much because what's the bottom line is that you see several lawyers. Kingsley is here, Bobby, Honorable Dafia Mekpo, myself. They'll tell you that what we need to understand is that in law we have different philosophical schools of thought. So it depends on where you belong. Mm. It depends on where you belong. So you see that's how come one key thing, I keep saying that if you want to understand this Supreme Court decision, you need to understand the philosophical leanings of the judges. So this thing that they have jurisdiction, it belongs to one school of thought. So if you don't belong there, so if you are literalist, you will say, oh yes, they see that, one person says the actions of the 4 MPs are not to take effect in this particular parliament, and so they belong to the future, right? So because one says it's for the future, and another group of people say no, the actions of the 4 MPs will affect their seats in the current parliament, then it means that there is a dispute. Right. So if you do it literally like that, you would actually say the Supreme Court doesn't have the Supreme Court was right? But when you are a realist, you're a realist, then you go beyond just what you see literally. What I see beyond this one saying, oh, it's for the future, and this one saying, no, the 4 seats, their actions by going to file independent, etc., will affect them currently, is that there is politics at play here. If you say it affects them today, MPP will become the minority, and NDC will become the majority. So quickly, people will go and hide behind constitutional provisions. I'm a realist. I'm not going to do that. Oh, if you go by the literalist approach, the guidelines from the Supreme Court, well, long ago, from Tufo versus Atenija, there are too many Supreme Court decisions. We don't want to go into Supreme Court decisions and make this overly technical. So I'll just make the main points. So if you're just going by the literalist approach, you say the Supreme Court has jurisdiction. But if you're a realist, you see that this is a ruse. The provision is very clear, and the same Supreme Court. Look, lawyers will tell you, even Bobby was there recently, the celebrities doing adverts, etc., right? There are many decisions they will tell you that, look, this thing, they don't see anything wrong. There's no interpretation arising. The thing is very clear. Don't come and waste our time here, right? Yeah, they even sometimes, from the way they react, it's just like we are not doing a good job as lawyers, right? They say, but this thing is clear. Why are you wasting our time, etc.? I'm telling you that 97 clause 1, J and H are also very clear to me. I'm a realist because what I see beneath this case is plain politics, partisan politics, NDC versus MPP, which has been dressed up as a constitutional interpretation matter, but it is not. So, because we have different jurisprudential views, etc., you will find the Supreme Court saying for them they see a jurisdictional issue. So on that basis, you can't fault them because you see, finally, they are the ones you've given the power to. We can't fault them right now, but rather what we will begin to fault is the Constitution and the power of the president to appoint. Because when the president is appointing, I told you, I mentioned the week before last week, the president will not appoint Honorable Dafia Mekpo because he knows Dafia Mekpo is what? MPP. NDC, right? I'm switching you, forgive me. You see? So they will not appoint Dafia Mekpo because they know, hey, he's NDC. So if the matter comes, because in law we have different viewpoints, he will take the viewpoint that will enable him to rule against the president's wishes. You see the selection? So devil selection. You line up and select the people who are sympathetic to your views. That one will say plainly. You see? They will say plainly. You see all the lawyers, because their qualification to the Supreme Court, I tell you, There's no exams, so there's no exams. After 15 years at the bar, whether maybe you're a judge or you are a lawyer at the bar, you qualify. Of course, there are other things like you shouldn't have moral turpitude, those ones, right? But I'm talking about the main criteria. 15 years. If you're a lawyer for 15 years, you qualify. Good. And so look at the lawyers. We're over 4,000. And many of them are more than 15 years.
Including yourself?
Yes, yes. I'm 17. This is my 18th year.
I see.
So, when they are selecting Supreme Court, did you see the last time they were selecting? They said, oh, people, you to come. We see you are very passionate about this and governance. Come and take a seat on the Supreme Court. Did you see? No. They will select people who they see from their track record. Look, affiliations. Look, if you don't say this democracy will not grow. It's by affiliations. Sure. You think if you don't know the president or they are not comfortable with you, anybody will make a mistake and say, go and sit on the Supreme Court. Whether NDC, MPP, is the same thing. So, in short, the Supreme Court is more of a political organization. We will not be shy to say that, because if you don't do that, you won't understand the decisions. If we don't do that, you won't understand the political decisions.
I disagree whether MPP or NDC.
Look, you guys do the same thing you do.
I disagree.
NDC, MPP, you choose your friends. Your friends. That's what happens. You choose people who are sympathetic to your. So if you want to be more, so let me show you how it is done. When you don't want to use the word friends and people who are affiliated to you, the way to hide it is to say, oh, people whose jurisprudential views are aligned with your party. So that's big English. The plain meaning of it is people who are friends with you. That is it. If you want to understand it, plain English. Let's not go and speak, oh, people who philosophically are aligned with you. No. That, when you hear philosophically aligned with one party or your views, the plain meaning of it is when you are friends, when we are comfortable, when we can go to bed, knowing that when a matter like this comes, you will vote for us. That is it.
So you don't fault the Supreme Court on this jurisdictional matter?
Yes, but what I'm faulting is the way our constitution is so weak, so lopsided, that it gives the president the power to choose Supreme Court judges. Going forward, we don't want such a provision. Even the Chief Justice herself hinted at it at her vetting, where she said no, she thinks the constitutional provisions 148 etc., giving the president a role in the discipline of judges etc., it's not good for our democracy. That's Chief Justice Tokono herself saying it. It's not good because it's weakening the institutions of government. Because look, if you look at a constitution right now, the way it's modeled there, it's like you buy one, you get one free. So you get the executive, then you get control of the judiciary through appointments. So buy the executive through elections, you campaign and you become president, then you get to control judiciary through appointments, etc. It's not only the discipline. Chief Justice Tokono has also had occasion to complain that the executive will not release money to the judiciary, right? They sit on the money, kind of sit on the money. Don't release releases that are due. And what do you do? Through that, you will influence them. Yes, she said it. So for our democracy, please, moving forward, this then that the president would appoint High Court, Court of Appeal, and Supreme Court judges is the first provision to go if you want this democracy to grow. Because right now, as I sit and look at Article 97 and see that this is a storm in a teacup, the thing is very clear. It says that, look, H, if the person, so 1H says, a member of parliament shall vacate his seat in parliament. H, let's start with the easier one. If he was elected a member of parliament as an independent candidate and joins a political party. So as we sit now, the papers that were filed at the EC for Esiama, what did they say? Is Esiama an independent candidate at the EC? He's MPP. It's MPP that filed for him. So what is constitutional interpretation about this? What is constitutional interpretation? Esiama is MPP today. If you say the provision is for the future parliament, so are we saying that Esiama should win the elections, let's say, for example, he wins on December 7th, and then just after winning on December 7th, let's say January 7th, they are sworn in. And then, because those who say the election is for the future, Esiama who is just sworn in on, let's say, January 7th, 2025, immediately will lose the seat. Those who are saying that if you join a political party, meaning he's joined a political party in future. So he's just won the elections, sworn in, and immediately he loses the seat. And so we have to go for a new by-election. What kind of interpretation is this?
But I hear that the Attorney General also make that point that to the extent that there is some controversy about the meaning and interpretation of this. There's no better mechanism in seeking clarity about the controversy in the application of the Constitution than to seek that interpretation at the Supreme Court.
That's why, so it still comes back to the same thing. So you see how the thing has been arranged. It's a ruse. That's why I told you, if you are doing a literalist interpretation, you say, oh, this one says this one says it. So because of that, there's a controversy. That's what the Attorney General is saying. It's politics. So they know by the time they go through the process, aren't we left with 2 months and about 10 days, or it's even less, to the end of the life of this parliament? Yeah, because we just have November, December, and then January, 7 days, right? So
actually,
the 6
days.
Okay, doesn't belong. So 6 days in January. So 2 months, and today is 2nd. So 2 months and what? 4 days to the end. So when it tells you that there's a controversy, that's the point that I'm making. So a literalist, really, when we say literalist, meaning that you are just taking it on the face of it. So you hear there's a literalist school, okay, there's a modern purposive approach, right? Mischief, etc. Various ways of interpreting the Constitution, right? And that's why I'm saying that. So in this case, when they choose to say there's a controversy, it's convenient because it then affords them opportunity to go to court for that process. So if, let's say, you go to court and then by the time you are done, the life of Parliament too has come to an end, but then they would have achieved their purpose, which is that they don't want to lose the majority in Parliament. That's the whole thing. So say that there's a controversy. Yes, there's a controversy. Let's go to court. And you know the court decision is not one day. Even this promise that we should, the court will deliver judgment on the 9th of November. That's very fast, very fast. The court, 11th of November, 11th, the Supreme Court says on that day to deliver judgment. So even if you take it to 11th, so you see when this thing started, 18th, the Supreme Court gave a decision on the 18th, right?
Of October.
Then it's dragged down, hopefully 11th. So within all this time, you've prevented the NDC from becoming what? Majority. So it serves a certain purpose, right? So the point we're making is that even when there's no controversy, people who find it convenient will say there's a controversy. And then they already know that there are people who have been appointed and they are aligned in terms of philosophical views with the way the MPP sees things. So they are confident that let's go to court. They say when somebody keeps challenging you, let's go to court, let's go to court. Be very careful. Be very, very careful. When they say, let's go. Yes, let's go to court. Hey. And
this is the point where, hold on, and we'll get to the other aspect. That's where I bring in Bobby Bunsen, a constitutional lawyer for that matter. I mean, in the mind of the Chief Justice, this matter was at hand was a more of a constitutional issue than political. That's another issue that we'll come to. But you described this Supreme Court decision to dismiss the Speaker's application to overturn that ruling that blocked him from declaring those 4 seats as a classic one. I mean, and comprehensive and well-reasoned. What brought you to this conclusion?
Well, I said the decision was a solid one. I didn't say it was right or it was wrong. I said it was solid in the sense that it had addressed all the issues that had been raised in the application.
Right.
And so if you go to court and you say that I want the Supreme Court to set aside its previous orders on the 18th of October on these grounds, and the Supreme Court take pains to respond to each of these grounds, lawyers will say it is a well-reasoned judgment. So it is in that context that I said it was solid. Because Senior Martin and I were in court. If they had left some of the issues hanging, they would have said, what happened? They raised this issue, you didn't address it, and yet you have come to a conclusion.
No, Bobby, but they left something hanging. Let's bring it's very important. When Tadiosori wrote that the Supreme Court was doing a partisan agenda, that means raised it. You see, they left it. That was the kernel of the matter.
They didn't leave it.
How did they go ahead?
There was a paragraph in his affidavit, I think 2 paragraphs, that they said were scandalous to the extent that I think the first one suggested that the Chief Justice was privy to a constitutional breach. It was stated there in the affidavit.
I mean, yes. The partisan one.
Yes, and that was the second one. The second one was that the decision... the decision was intended to have a political undertone or serve a political purpose.
Yes.
So those two issues were raised, and then the response, I remember Justice Asare Darko telling the counsel for the speaker that it is scandalous to put such matters in an affidavit because you do not have evidence to support it. And so you can sit maybe anywhere and then make those commentaries. But when you file an affidavit, and senior, you'll all agree that per the rules of court, every pleading or every affidavit that seeks to achieve a certain end beyond bringing facts and evidence before the court could be struck out. And so those issues were raised, and I heard Justice Asare Darko, before the ruling was delivered, in the course of the discussions, telling the counsel for the speaker that these matters, the two paragraphs in the opinion, are scandalous to the extent that as it stands now, there is no evidence that was attached to that affidavit.
That the part the Supreme Court was taking was a partisan one?
Exactly. But other than that, what it would have meant was that the Supreme Court may have asked the person who deposed to that affidavit, come and stand in the box, and then demonstrate to us how the Supreme Court had given a decision that is intended to achieve a certain political end. So that is why I'm saying that I think they addressed all the issues.
No, and that was Justice Asare Darko alone.
No,
I think it wasn't a decision.
Let me finish. So that issue of the scandalous nature of some of the affidavits, you realize that the Attorney General even didn't file an affidavit in opposition. And he sought to raise it on his feet. And the objection by Senior Sorry was that he should have come formally with that. So perhaps the Supreme Court thought that because it was not formally before them, there was no need maybe to include it in a formal ruling, that they would have dealt with the matters that had been filed. So it was to that extent that I said, if you look at the issues that were raised, the objection to the inclusion of Justice Gau, it was addressed. Gaiwu. It was that's the first.
Gaiwu. That's the second.
Yes. It was addressed. The issue of the fact that the Supreme Court didn't have jurisdiction, it was addressed. The issue of the fact that there was a breach of natural justice because the application was made ex parte, that was also addressed. And the fact that the speaker, whether the speaker had the right to reject the service, that was also addressed. So that is why I said, if you look at all the issues that were raised in the application, the Supreme Court took pains to address each of them and gave reasons why they decided to, or why they agreed or disagreed with the proponents of those issues.
I see. So it's not the description of the decision of the Supreme Court being a solid one was not to say, based on your point, that whether they were right or wrong. It was because they had given comprehensive explanation to the decisions they took.
Exactly.
Now, then I get to the devil in the detail. Based on detail that was given specifically, was the conclusion right or wrong?
Okay, let me explain my position on it. I am of the opinion that raising the issue of the inclusion of Justice Ernest Gaiwu, that because he had been affiliated with a political party, he wasn't qualified to sit on the case, I thought was a moot question.
Why is that?
My reason is that, and Senior Pebu, I kind of disagree with you with your position, and I'll bring it into this. As to the president's power to appoint judges to the Supreme Court, it seems to, or your presentation suggests that it's like the president is the alpha and omega of the appointment of persons to the Supreme Court.
I'm a realist.
Let me explain why I depart. And this Justice Ernest Gaiwu's situation, the president only nominates to the Supreme Court. The nomination goes to Parliament. Parliament is made up of representatives of the people. In this Parliament, we have the privilege of what we are calling as the hang Parliament, almost split on equal political lines. When Justice Ernest Gaiwu's nomination came to Parliament, I think there were 2 or 3 of them, the first batch were approved. I don't remember whether there was a dissent.
The Fair Boy is a member of the public.
That is why I'm looking at him. That is why I'm looking at him.
Okay.
That is why I'm looking at him.
So this matter came before you.
No, there were 5. 3 of them got approved. Hayes and that of Justice Kumsin delayed until about January.
But they were voted upon by the appointment committee.
Yes.
And the appointment committee...
Yes, as for the appointment committee, they make their decision. They brought the recommendation to the floor. It is a plenary that out of the 5, 3 got approval. But that of the
appointment committee presented them to Parliament for approval.
Yeah, they recommend.
That is what I'm saying. They recommended all of them.
That's right.
Yes, and senior here, who is an NDC member, is a member of the appointment committee.
No, I'm not. But I'll deal with those. No, I'm not.
Oh, you are not? Because Alfred said it, so I thought...
No, I'm not.
You are not what?
I'm a member of Parliament. So
okay, I thought he said the appointment committee. But the point I'm trying to make...
I'll go into the intricacies of that.
Yes, the point I'm trying to make that if the NDC was of the opinion that Mr. Gaiwu was not qualified to sit at the Supreme Court because of his previous affiliation to a certain political party, they had the right to refuse his appointment. Now, the Supreme Court, as it stands now, does not have any jurisdiction to say, after Parliament has approved somebody to sit at the bar, the Chief Justice and the other justices...
At the bench.
Sorry, at the bench. The Chief Justice and the other justices cannot say that because somebody had raised your previous affiliation to a political party, we do not think that you are or we do not think you are qualified to sit. That would mean, in my opinion, that the Supreme Court is usurping the powers of Parliament. Because the ground, it's not as if you are saying that I have in my hands information that before you came to sit, the chairman of the MPP called you, or Mr. Fenyo Markin, who is a plaintiff in this matter, called you and said, do not come, or when you come and sit, reason along these lines. If we told those lines, what it means is that, because in any event, the Supreme Court judges, they vote. There's nothing in the Constitution that prevents them from voting. And so to say that, one, because of his previous affiliation to a political party, and I heard him say when he was vetted that he had denounced his affiliation. I think it was one of the questions that were asked, that he had denounced his affiliation to the... And no contrary evidence was produced that he was still a card-bearing member of that political party. So to that extent, I think that the Supreme Court was right in refusing the objection on the basis that he was previously affiliated to a political party. Secondly, the issue of... Sorry? Yes. Secondly, the issue of whether or not the Supreme Court had jurisdiction to entertain the writ in the first place.
Okay, on the matter of jurisdiction, before you get there, but to the extent that on this matter of Justice Gaiwu, to the extent that even though this matter you would say is legal and constitutional matter, as this Chief Justice sought to put it, at the heart and base of this particular issue is politics. So would you say that having included someone who was previously associated with a particular political party that also has interest in this case was good for the optics, the perception going into this particular case?
Alfred, you know...
And that's why I said the Supreme Court itself...
Yes, I want hold on.
You know, the issue of perception, and you say at the heart of politics, for me, to be honest with you, we have a certain training as lawyers. All of us sitting here, our training as lawyers tells us that justice is dispensed according to 3 yardsticks: case law, well-defined practice, and statute. So you can decide to throw politics into every single matter that appears before the Supreme Court. And I'll give you an example. When there was the issue of the narcotics amendment bill, or something that would allow
use of cannabis. Okay.
The Attorney General, this Attorney General, went to the Supreme Court. The Attorney General lost in this government. But it was an issue that they had said they needed the funds or something. There was a political discussion about it. The Attorney General lost in this present government. And so sometimes when we generally throw issues that for every single matter that goes to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court must wear the political hat, I think it is dangerous for our democratic dispensation. No, you see that.
To prove the rule.
No, you see, but that is what I'm saying. That.
Hold on. Sorry? You have your
the narcotics. Yeah. No, there was that attorney. Yes.
Let me. What happened was that in that matter, somebody alleged that section clause 43 of the law that sought to limit the THC value of the narcotic content that's to be approved under the law was not properly debated. That was what the gentleman took to court. That it was Attorney General that sponsored the bill. So it wasn't about money. It was about how long it took Parliament. In fact, they actually deposed to the fact that that provision, that amendment was introduced at about 5:45, and by 5:50 it had been approved and adopted and formed part of the law.
Right.
And in the opinion of the plaintiff,
they were just making an intervention, so please make it brief.
Parliament ought to have debated the matter or even returned to the people, the representatives, to inquire more whether or not they were in favor. And when we were when it was struck down, and Parliament had to
what was struck down?
That provision.
So at the end of the day, the Attorney General's position was not taking. That is all that I'm saying. That he lost.
Money. Yeah, but the Attorney General also didn't understand parliamentary proceedings.
But the Supreme Court did not agree with the Attorney General.
Yes,
that is the point I'm trying to make.
Okay,
no, I brought in the money because there was political commentary that indeed that they needed that hurriedly done because it would bring some revenue. We recall that discussion as well. So the point I was trying to make is that the Attorney General lost that matter in this current Supreme Court dispensation. And so to generally say that every matter that goes to the Supreme Court must wear a certain political hat, or there is politics at the heart of it, we cannot take away the politics. Every matter here, we can decide to throw in politics. But whether or not we should say that the reason why the Supreme Court ruled in A, ruled in B, was because of certain political advantage or disadvantage, I think maybe, for lack of a better word, overreaching the substance of the constitutional dispensation.
I didn't make a general statement in my question. I was very specific about this particular case.
Yes.
So in answering, I just don't want us to expand the tentacles of my question to cover every other issue. The specific matter on the table today, it's in reference to this particular matter before the Supreme Court related to the Speaker's decision as communicated on the 4 seats in contention, which is a political matter in the legislature.
Yes.
Which has political implications.
Yes.
Now, because the Supreme Court has been roped into a political matter, you cannot delink or disassociate the politics of the matter from the constitutional nature of the matter.
Maybe the political consequences
of the and that's clear.
Yes.
So, if you agree, would you also say that including a judge who had previous association with a party to the political consequence of this case on a matter in court for the optics and the perception was the right one?
I don't think that there was any demonstration that the reasoning by that judge had been influenced by his previous political dispensation.
Right.
Other than that, if we go by that argument, I think the judges were Justice Ernest Gayu, Mariama Owusu.
Yes.
The Chief Justice was in the middle, Justice Asiedu, and then Justice Asare Dako. Senior, if I remember, all these judges were appointed to the Supreme Court by the current president.
Yes.
And if you look at the judges that are there, I think apart from a few, 3 or 4 I recall, only 2. Yes, the rest were appointed by the current president. And so if we go by that reasoning, then one may also argue that none of the judges there also qualified, because Senior Tebu had made that point, that if you have a president who you would have to get somebody who would align with your reasoning and all of that. So it would mean that none of the judges there would be deemed to be independent enough, because at the end of the day, it is a political question. It will benefit one particular political party. But back to my argument on the jurisdiction, that we have said that the Supreme Court has the original jurisdiction to interpret constitutional matters.
Right.
And so if there is a matter that the Constitution says the High Court should have the jurisdiction to declare a seat vacant, I heard the Supreme Court say that they think, in their opinion, that they are constitutional, various or varying constitutional interpretation. And so they want to exercise that jurisdiction to interpret what those articles mean. Mind you, they have not said that they think that it means A or it means B. They said on the 11th, we will know whether they will give their judgment or perhaps adjourn again for another day to give their judgment. And so they said that if somebody goes to the High Court and various contentions are raised as to what the Article 97 means, because we have not yet had a decision from the Supreme Court that has interpreted that Article 97. There are cases that we all thought the articles were very clear. And we've had Professor Asari, I think one of the one he did in 2003, 2004, that dealt with whether there's a gap in the, I've forgotten the particular article. The very first one that they firmly introduced the purposive interpretation.
Yes, that's going out, and whether he's still president
exactly.
or any person is.
And we all read it, and I don't think anybody had raised that issue formally before the Supreme Court. But Professor Asari came and raised it, and the Supreme Court said, oh, there's a problem with the Constitution. You have raised a lot of constitutional interpretation issues before the Supreme Court, which until you raised it, nobody had formally brought it to the attention of the Supreme Court. So I agree with you that if the Supreme Court thinks that there are various possible interpretations, let's give them the opportunity. Let's see what they will say. After all, the Constitution anticipates that one of the sources of laws in Ghana are judgments and decisions of courts of competent jurisdiction. So if the Supreme Court interprets it A or B, it will guide us until they themselves have found enough reason to depart from it. So to that extent, I think the Supreme Court's jurisdiction to interpret those provisions may have been properly invoked. Now the next issue, which is very, very important, is whether or not ex parte applications could have been filed in that manner for stay of execution. When I saw the title of the motion or the ruling, I was very surprised, because in our practice or what we have been reading, we are used to ex parte applications being filed in a certain way under certain circumstances. That you'd say that there are judgments of the courts, and this is an argument that was urged by Senior Tadio, sorry. There are judgments of the court that you say that you seek to stay, and to that extent, you must even serve the other party notice. And so to exercise that jurisdiction, to stay that ruling by the speaker in that circumstances was quite unusual. But I would want to read something. Sina, can I borrow? And the rules book. And it was read in court. So I would want to read it. If you look at, so this is the High Court Civil Procedure Rules, but we know that where the Supreme Court rules do not make provision for certain practice or procedure, you go to the High Court. Now, Order 19, Rule 3 talks about ex parte motions. Now, it says that subject to Rule 1, Sub-Rule 3, an application by motion may be made ex parte where any of these rules provide, where any of these rules specifically provide, or where, having regard to the circumstances, the court considers it appropriate, no, considers it proper to permit the application to be made. So in responding to the issue of the natural justice, the Supreme Court relied on this. They read it in court. That under Order 19, Rule 3.1, it doesn't give the exceptions to the kind of applications they can entertain ex parte. To be frank, my attention had not been drawn to it, but they read it. They said, look at the all, having regard to the circumstances. Now they said that they thought that the circumstances were ripe to entertain the application ex parte, because an application on notice
had been filed.
Just before you call, I think somebody was saying that you cannot make the application ex parte.
No, I said the application for stay of execution was made ex parte. And the argument was that what we are used to is that application for stay of execution must always be on notice.
Okay, it's right.
And that was one of the bases for the application to set aside that October 18th.
I get it.
So the Supreme Court, in responding to that argument, read Order 19 Rule 3.
I mean, even without reading it, the court usually has inherent jurisdiction. Go on. But
that was one essential ground. And the Supreme Court said that it says there clearly that having regard to the circumstances. Now, they said the circumstances that they elected to rely on was that there was an application on notice to restrain the Speaker from going ahead to deliver the ruling on that day. However, when the application on notice was served on the Speaker returned the service, and the Speaker went ahead to deliver his ruling. Now, in the mind of the Supreme Court, they thought that those circumstances were enough to entertain an application for stay of execution. Now, whether we like it or not, the rules of court give discretion to judges. In fact, we were taught in law school that 90% of the rules of court fixes discretion with judges. The Supreme Court decided to exercise discretion to entertain the application for stay of execution under these circumstances. And so they said, we have the discretion. Do you agree? The answer was yes. He said, we have chosen to exercise the discretion this way. Now, they went ahead to say that to avoid the situation where the exercise of the discretion may give undue disadvantage to one side of the case, we want to go straight to the substance of the matter. So instead of the usual timelines of when you file a writ, after 14 days, you are now, is it 14 days in here? You must now file your statement of case. Then the other side must be served. So if we go through with that processes, we will be going into December. So they are saying that to avoid the hardship of the ex parte ruling we gave, we have asked the Attorney General to file his statement of case within 7 days. We have asked the plaintiff to file a statement of case within 7 days. And we have asked the Speaker to file a statement of case also within 7 days, so that they have abridged the time, so that whatever hardship that our ex parte ruling would have given would be, should I say, pacified by us abridging the time. So that every court under these circumstances has that discretion. Maybe if I was sitting there, I would have exercised the discretion differently. Maybe if Senior Martin was sitting there, he would have exercised
absolutely. You know that very much. You know that. You know that. And you know where it would have gone.
Yes, but it doesn't mean that the Supreme Court did something unlawful.
So you see where I come back to alignment. You see, they say philosophical alignment.
But you've used the word that I can't challenge. You said perceptions. And those things.
I say alignment. Hey, when you are choosing president nominating, hey, he has to be sure they are aligned. That one, don't play with it.
I'm not playing with it, but what I'm saying is that if you want to see it like that throughout, then it will mean that you are saying that the justices no longer dispense justice in accordance with statute, case law, and well-defined practice.
Also, in exercising discretion, as is the Supreme Court is clothed with, they are not to do it whimsically and capriciously.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So in this particular instance that you underscore the fact that the Supreme Court justice decided, in fact the CJ and the court decided to exercise discretion to, as it were, speed up the matter by cutting down the time to avoid the eventual consequence of this matter going through the normal course of time, which would have then have the matter be heard sometime in December. Then essentially these persons, their constituents will not have representation and so on. In the matter of Saul, which has been brought in now, since the exercise of this discretion is not supposed to be whimsical and capricious, would you have expected that the Supreme Court could have also exercised that discretion to speed up the matter of Saul as well?
Alfred, you know, I don't have all the facts on the matter of Saul, but I've heard a few comments being made that the original writ or action was commenced in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court declined jurisdiction. Then it went back to the High Court. and I'm hearing for the first time that the High Court says that it doesn't have jurisdiction. It should go back to the Supreme Court. I don't know when the matter was filed at the Supreme Court, when the Supreme Court delivered the decision, when the matter went to the High Court, when the High Court delivered the decision, and whether or not after the High Court has delivered the decision, a new action has indeed been commenced at the Supreme Court. I do not know. Because until you invoke the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court cannot sit and say, okay, I have heard the matter of SAR, the party should come, we want to adjudicate. Somebody must invoke the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. I do not know if that has been done. So I'm saying that I cannot speak to timelines in respect of SAR.
Look, there is the case of the Valentine Jache. That's the one they are talking about. Valentine Edem Jache versus Henry Ametefe and the chairman of Hohoi constituency, NDC, blah, blah, blah.
It is in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, 2020. So they went to the Supreme Court 24th June 2020. That's the thing. So the Supreme Court saw that Saul was going to be disenfranchised. They didn't say anything. They went by the old ruling or the old principle that if you are creating a constituency, it will take effect after the current elections. That's to say there was an impending elections 2020. This constituency you want to create won't take effect in 2020. It should go to 2024. So that's what people are crying about. That you could see it clearly coming.
So that the Supreme Court has delivered a decision.
Yes, 24th June 2020.
So then the matter is no longer pending before the Supreme Court.
Yes, so they are saying that the time it came before the Supreme Court, you could see it coming. That these people, with what you are deciding, it means that they won't get, the South people will not get their constituency for the 2020 elections. Okay. And yet you use the old principle. You know, it didn't start. It's not this Jache case that first established. There were previous decisions. There was the one even Kingsley, your former boss, my in-law, Dr. Ayeni did. Yeah, my wife. You too, yeah. Let's go. Proceed. It's a joke that not really.
You said it here before.
Let's go on. So the point people are making is that 24th June 2020, when the Supreme Court was delivering its decision in the Jache case versus Ametefe, it was clear that going into 2020 elections, the SAR people will not get a constituency. They will not have an MP. Yet the Supreme Court stuck to the old principle in the Constitution that, listen, if you are creating a constituency, it will take effect after the elections. After, but not in the coming election.
The Supreme Court delivered a decision based on established precedents, but you do not agree with that decision.
Oh, are you drawing me into rate?
Because the argument,
you want my opinion. I'm just trying to explain.
I thought that maybe the writ is still pending at the Supreme Court.
No, that was given.
The Supreme Court is refusing to hear the matter. That was what I was, because you said, what about
you want my opinion? Oh, quickly. Oh, I'll give you our high for me. Once I saw
the direction of the question was the specific concern that the Supreme Court expressed in the fact that these 4 persons, their seats being declared vacant, their constituents will be deprived representation.
Yes.
Okay.
And so people are saying that when the Supreme Court was deciding this case, it was also clear to them that with this decision, these people, and then when Jachikwesin's case came, they hadn't decided yet. Yeah, they said no, he should not sit in Parliament. Didn't they deprive citizens of their representation? Jachikwesin,
right? And the other case, disagreement with the Jachikwesin case.
And so I'm just
the intention that was given. I expressed my disagreement with it.
Okay.
So that's
the point. Okay, please.
Perception about the court.
Conclude on that.
Yes, and so if you go to the exercise of discretion, once the Constitution or the rules of court have given it to the judges, whether High Court, District Court, Court of Appeal, Supreme Court, they are there to exercise the discretion. They could be right, they could be wrong, but as long as they could trace the exercise of that authority to rules of court or the Constitution, you cannot necessarily say that they have acted unlawfully. So the argument I'm making is that, yes, if perhaps I was there or you were there, you could have chosen to exercise the discretion differently. But you and I are not the ones there. So if they are there and they've exercised the discretion, you could throw in whatever, if you say it's politics, it is that, it is this. But at the end of the day, their decision on the true and proper meaning of that Article 97 1G, they said they will give it on the 11th. and they can actually uphold the speaker's interpretation, or they can depart from the speaker's interpretation. It's up to them to do.
Well, we will see. 11th is just 9. 11th is just 9 days away. And please, let me bring in. No, don't draw him into this. He's an officer. He's an officer of the court. I beg you.
So predictable. You can't.
No. No, resist that temptation. No, let me bring in Nelson Ross and Dafiamepo on this matter. Being a member of parliament who is a direct stakeholder in this matter, this is the decision of the Supreme Court essentially dismissing the application by the Speaker. And I want us to hear the matter on the merit, the merits of the issue that the Speaker brought before the courts. This is what the decision of the court was, and I'll bring you on this point. Let's take a listen.
Application and find that the grounds supporting the application have no merit because of the very explicit and clear directions of the 1992 Constitution, specifically Article 2, Article 130, and Article 296, and established decisions of the Supreme Court from decades of the country's constitutional history.
That's the verdict of the court.
To what? The verdict regarding what exactly?
That's basically the application by the Speaker, essentially.
You see, we need to understand how Parliament works. It appears that even the Supreme Court itself does not understand how Parliament functions.
Why do you say that?
Because if they have some appreciation of how Parliament functions, in issuing even the stay of execution order, they would have directed it to certain specific officers of Parliament, i.e. the Speaker, i.e. the Marshal, i.e. the Clerk to Parliament. Because this matter, let me reference Article 95 of the Constitution. It says, 95:1, there shall be a Speaker of Parliament who shall be elected by the members of Parliament from among persons who are members of Parliament or who are qualified to be elected as members of Parliament. 2, the sister provision in 97, here it goes, under 95. 95:2 says, the Speaker shall vacate his office. A, if he becomes a minister of state or a deputy minister. Do you understand what I'm saying? Or, if he resigns from office by writing, signed by him and addressed to the Clerk to Parliament. Or, if any circumstances arise that if he were not Speaker, will disqualify him for election as Member of Parliament. Or D, if he is removed from office by a resolution of Parliament supported by the votes of no less than 3/4 of all members of Parliament. If you go to 97, 97 borrows this same similar language in respect of an office of a Member of Parliament. It says, a Member of Parliament shall vacate his seat in Parliament. Then he gives the indications. Now, what exactly is an issue here? What were the facts placed before the Supreme Court in this matter? Is the MPP saying that Cynthia Morrison hasn't filed as an independent candidate in Aguna West? Is that what they went to tell the Supreme Court? Did the MPP tell the Supreme Court that Kwadwo Asamoah did not file as an independent candidate?
Kwadwo Asante.
Kwadwo Asante didn't file as an independent candidate in Suhum. Was that the facts that the MPP brought before the court? Or that the current independent member of Parliament for Fomena has not joined them, the MPP, so much so that they have presented him and sponsored him as a member of the party under their logo, under their symbol, pursuant to Regulation 14 of CI 127? for which notices of poll have been issued to that effect. Are those the facts that the MPP presented before the court? So, what exactly is the Supreme Court trying to adjudicate? That these things have not happened? So, the pronouncement by Speaker should be stayed? It has taken effect. So, if there's a certain stay order, it will take Parliament to take that decision to reverse the effect of the Speaker's pronouncement. Parliament hasn't made those decisions. No resolution has been passed yet. Because the day that resolution could have been passed, we lack quorum to take that decision. So we adjourn CNDA. Now, I heard Bobby say that the matter that went before the court was not political. Who says so?
Senior.
Okay.
I said it may have political implications.
No.
But we don't expect the Supreme Court to wear political hats.
It's not that it has political implications. Dafenyo Maki himself, now the minority leader who deposed to the affidavit.
Now the minority leader.
He is.
He's the leader of the MPP.
No.
Okay, he says MPP caucus.
No.
Let's not debate on describing him as the minority leader.
Everybody should calm down.
Yes.
I am speaking to his own affidavit, so let me quote his own affidavit.
Okay.
If you go to paragraph, and permit me, because it will set the tone for this matter. Paragraph 8 of his affidavit, subparagraph 2, he starts by this way: that the ruling of the Speaker of Parliament deprives the 4 constituencies represented by these 4 ousted members of Parliament their constitutional right of representation in Parliament, because from the date of the said ruling up to the date of dissolution of the 8th Parliament of the 4th Republic in the midnight of 6 January 2025 is a period of less than 3 months. By the express provision of Article 1126 of the Constitution, 1992 Constitution, a by-election shall not be held within 3 months before the holding of a general election. Thus, the ruling of the Speaker of Parliament smacks of a coup d'etat. Speaker, the Supreme Court couldn't strike down this affidavit. They went to court to say that Speaker committed a coup d'etat in Parliament. The Supreme Court adopted this affidavit and acted on it. That one, it wasn't scandalous. To go to court and say that Speaker's decision amounted to a coup d'etat, the Supreme Court accepted this language in an affidavit.
You're reading from the affidavit?
Yes. And I'm referencing you paragraph 8 sub 2 of Apeno Markin's affidavit in support of the ex parte application. And that smacks of a coup d'etat against the 4 affected constituencies to deny them lawful representation in the National Assembly. 3. He continues. 3. That in the absence of any by-election between the date of the ruling of the Speaker of Parliament, that is 17th October 2024, and the dissolution of the 8th Parliament of the 4th Republic, Ghanaian citizens, listen, Ghanaian citizens residing in these 4 constituencies do not have the right of re-electing anyone to replace these 4 ousted members of Parliament. This makes the said ruling of the Speaker of Parliament, because I'm reading from, this makes the said ruling of the Speaker of Parliament an irreparable damage and excessively harsh if the said ruling is not stayed by this honorable court. You are listening to the terms of the affidavit in support. Pure politics. 4, this is where it comes, that the balance of convenience will tilt against the plaintiff applicant and the new patriotic party, the party in government, as the minority party takes over as majority party in Parliament. This will thwart government business, and by so doing, make the country economically difficult in order to make in order to make the government of the day unpopular in an election year to score political points. Attached here to and marked as SBC is the weekly business agenda of Parliament for the week ending 18th October and all that.
Yes.
Now, the rest are our affidavits, so I'll leave it. V885, paragraph 8, sub 5, that the ruling of the Speaker of Parliament, if made to stand, could plunge the country into mayhem and chaos as unnecessary parliamentary inquiries. Listen, as unnecessary parliamentary inquiries likely to be raised by the new majority party. Are you listening?
Yes.
By the new majority party in Parliament could bring government business to a halt and lead the country into civil disobedience, public demonstrations aimed at.
See, so the NDC was described as the new majority party.
Thank you.
In the affidavit.
So before the Supreme Court heard this ex parte application, they knew that it is the NDC that is in the majority in Parliament.
I see.
That is these were the facts placed before the court. So for anybody to say that what the court engaged in was not politics, then it leaves much to be desired. The court knew exactly what they were asked to do. Look, to file a process at 12:40 p.m. at the Supreme Court registry on a Friday afternoon, forget it. You may not, the registrar may not even be available. Yeah. Friday afternoon, Supreme Court. Do you know how the Supreme Court registry works? But to file a process at 12:40 p.m. and by 2 p.m. the court has given a decision.
I thought they started sitting at 2. Or
no. If you read the proceedings, by 2 p.m. the decision has been given. So from the time of filing,
is it unprecedented?
The alacrity and the speed is mind-blowing. Even the circumstances under which the registrar was able to inform the Chief Justice that an innocuous ex parte application has been filed that deserves our attention, for which 4 Supreme Court judges will be summoned and paneled, including the CJ herself, 5. And they will hear the matter expressly and determine it within 1 hour. Oh, my brother, we are all officers of the court. We know how the registries work. This appears well organized.
Well, the CJ's position is that this is a constitutional matter, not a political matter.
I am saying this is a political matter. Yes. I have just read the affidavit in support of the application to you. So don't listen to what people say. Look at the documents that they considered. The CJ herself is also subject to the Constitution. The Supreme Court itself is also subject to the Constitution. Parliament is also subject to the Constitution. Are you aware there are constitutional provisions that Parliament can cite people for contempt of Parliament? When you impede, when by your actions you impede the work of Parliament.
So with what the Supreme Court has done, is it a contempt of Parliament?
So Parliament should also cite the registrar of the Supreme Court, cite the applicant, the minority leader, cite the Supreme Court judges for impeding its work. You think that will have peace in this country? Maybe Parliament should do that.
Does their action amount to contempt of Parliament?
Why? That is what the applicant is saying. The person who is moving the motion on the floor of Parliament says that by the conduct of these persons, their actions seeks to impede Parliament from conducting its constitutional functions. And so they should be referred to the Privileges Committee. And let's see how things play out. So you see, the spirit and the letter of the 1992 Constitution engenders that these 3 organs of state are co-equal. They must peacefully coexist. The Supreme Court is not the supervisor of Parliament. With all due respect, it is not. It is not. I'm a lawyer and I know exactly what I'm saying. It is not. So the Supreme Court, some pronouncements, CJ will hold a press conference and say things. that not even the president or the vice president can disobey. Yes, we know. But when a court order is disobeyed, we know the processes. Should we take the CJ to be issuing those threats? That not even the president or the vice can disobey the orders of the court. Yes, we know. But orders of the court are disobeyed by even ordinary people. You go to court, you get an injunction, people continue to build. Nothing happens. If indeed, you see, it is not the speaker. It appears that the CJ is looking at the speaker like an individual. Speaker is Bagman is the occupant of the speaker's office as we speak. So her choice of words in addressing Speaker Bagman leaves much to be desired.
Number 2 or number 3?
It's number 3.
Number 3. Okay.
You understand? You are addressing.
But practically he's number 2.
Okay. Yes. You are addressing another organ of state. So when you are addressing another organ of state, there must be some decorum. You understand? Look, you are supposed to coexist.
Not to interject, but this line, I don't remember the CJ, or you are referring to her words in the ruling.
Yes.
Okay, so
if the speaker chooses. Things like the speaker.
I was there.
Please.
So
please.
No. Wait. But he has a right to interject. There was a right. He has a right to interject. He has a right to raise.
The tone was not conciliatory at all.
With all due respect.
He was talking down another arm of government.
Please.
Hold on.
I'm not saying it's not the
same. Gentlemen, hold on.
He was talking down another arm of government.
Hold on.
Please.
Hold on. What is the point of issue that you raised?
I am saying...
No, Bobby Banson. Wait. I just want to hear him. Gentlemen, yes.
Sorry. There was an issue that was raised in the application as to whether or not the orders or the rulings that were given by the speaker was even subject to the Supreme Court's intervention. It was clearly argued. Then the Supreme Court read the Article 2 that says that they can give directions and orders whilst they are exercising their jurisdiction to interpret the Constitution. And that the jurisdiction to give the orders, even if those orders are directed to any other organ of state, the Constitution says that if that organ of state disobeys those orders, it constitutes a high crime. So that ruling was in respect of an issue that had been raised. It wasn't as if the CJ or the Supreme Court, for that matter, just gave threats.
Part of what was said was even some commentary. But you see, it's not so much about the substance; it's the form in which it came. I think that's where Professor Jampo raises the concern. Now,
now, can I make my point?
Yes, make your point. Make your point.
Now, when the Supreme Court says that if its orders are disobeyed by Parliament,
the president and the vice.
Yes,
and that is what the Constitution says.
Yes, and I'm saying that yes, it constitutes a high crime.
Yes.
So all the 275 members of Parliament will go to trial. High crime too will have to be tried. Won't we be tried?
Yes.
Yes. So it's such an unreasonable interpretation to reach.
Why?
Because it's not feasible. When Parliament decides to ignore this decision, nothing will happen. I'm telling you, nothing will happen.
It's just that there will be chaos.
Yes, but you understand. And I'm saying that I've just told you that if a member of Parliament decides today to cite the registrar of the Supreme Court for their conduct on the Friday that the ex parte decision was given, that the conduct constitutes contempt of Parliament, and so proceedings should be instituted. You think that there will be peace in this country? So I'm saying we must be reasonable when we are reaching some decisions, and we must imbibe the spirit and letter of the Constitution in reaching some of these decisions. And I'm saying that the evidence that Appenio went to place before the court is that Speaker's decision has rendered them a minority. So Supreme Court make us majority again. Essentially, this is what the affidavit is saying. And that the government of the day will be rendered unpopular. This is pure, in fact, this is worse than a campaign, political campaign. And that the new majority will hold a lot of inquiries and it will render the government unpopular. Inquiries about what? Government's fictitious dealings. This is what the Afenyo Maki, as leader of the MPP caucus, went to tell the court. And the court tilted it. And you are saying that the NDC group in parliament, as majority now, we shouldn't resist it. We'll resist it.
You will resist it?
We'll resist it. We won't vote.
You will not vote?
Parliament must take a decision to give effect to this. We won't vote. It's my right to vote. I say I won't vote.
So, as Parliament is being recalled on November 7,
yes,
you will go?
We will go. But we won't vote. There will not be a decisional quorum. I tell you. That one, mark my words. I tell you, on the 7th, there will not be a decisional quorum. There may be a commencement quorum. There will not be a decisional quorum. So nothing will happen on the 7th.
So the fundamental issue of who is majority has not been addressed.
Has not been addressed.
So with the recall of Parliament, that issue
will sit at our regular place.
Which is
for about 2 weeks now. We have a regular place we sit. That's what we sit. You see, we'll have to sit there for a decision, for a resolution to be passed to reverse the effect of Speaker's ruling. And that decision lies with Parliament. It doesn't lie with Speaker. That is the error the Supreme Court fell into. It is not the Speaker that will make that decision.
You mean it's not the Supreme Court that will make that decision?
No, it is not the Speaker that will make that decision. It is the House. That's what I'm saying. They are failing to understand how Parliament functions. Parliament takes decisions by resolutions. And I say I won't participate in the resolution passing. It's my right to vote. I say I won't vote. If I don't vote, if all the NDCs say we don't vote, there's no quorum to form a decision.
So that's what happened. That's why the Speaker adjourned the House Senate here.
So the House will have to be adjourned again, and it will continue to be adjourned. Once he doesn't have a quorum to make that decision, he will adjourn, and he will continue. So this is the absurdity. This is the absurd consequences of what the Supreme Court has decided, that everybody appears not to have seen. This is the absurd, and the Constitution does not encourage absurd consequences for his interpretation at all. There must be purpose to the interpretation. I am saying the ex parte application that came, and Bobby, you made a point. But you see, procedurally, when you go to a court, you must direct the court the orders on. Yes, no, not the reliefs. When you go to court, they will ask you, what is your authority? So the authority must be indicated on the face of the motion paper. Yes. He did not. So the court now has to go and look for the law to support the application. That's what happened. You must say the ex parte application pursuant to Order 19 so and so of CI 47. That's what you do on the face of the motion paper. There was.
We don't do that.
It is fatal. This is right. Wait. Hold on.
If you don't say that, it is not.
Let him finish his point.
This is the Supreme Court.
He's making salient points. So we think that one he will allow, he will whittle down his point.
It is fatal. You don't go to the Supreme Court and ask the judges to look for the law.
Yeah, but they will query you.
So make your point.
So I'm saying, even that, the Supreme Court has to look for the law to support the application. Okay. Then two. Okay. They pray for a stay pursuant to an ex parte application.
Right.
Who shouldn't last for more than 10 days. Supreme Court granted it ad infinitum. So they did things for the applicants that ordinarily any other applicant would have been through. In fact, you won't even last 1 second on your feet.
The cracked his kennel for him.
You understand? So this matter is pure politics, and I've been saying it, that Supreme Court in any jurisdiction is a political organ. First and foremost, before adjudicatory, And this Supreme Court has shown exactly that. So for me, anything that goes with the Supreme Court, it has a political connotation for me. Every decision. We went to court in respect of e-levy. Tax. It's not been heard. It's not been determined. Till today, the matter is in abeyance.
I see.
I went to court. Let me tell you, the president woke up 14th of February this year and dismissed some number of ministers with the stroke of his pen.
Right.
Mentioned them, dismissed all of them. This is with immediate effect. So even some who were on their way to the office, they had to go back. One told me.
I see.
You understand? So hold on. And then with the same communication, decided to make fresh appointments and sought to reshuffle 5 of those that he says he has dismissed. So I said, no way. He has the power to even reappoint them. But that reappointment, that reshuffle cannot be a reshuffle because you have told the whole country that you've dismissed them with immediate effect. So the constitutional provision has come into effect, Article 79 or so. So they must be subject to parliamentary pre-approval. I went to court to therefore stay the hand of Parliament, not to vet the persons he's brought. So the Supreme Court says, no, we can't stay the hand of Parliament. So those ministers, as we speak, they are working. The irreparable damage that will suffer is that tomorrow when the decision is made, that the dismissal letter constitutes termination, and therefore any subsequent appointment of same people is subject to parliamentary pre-approval constitutional provision. The decisions they would have made on behalf of the Republic, what will happen to them? So for you, the court declare it null and void?
So the solution to this matter, in your view, doesn't lie with the court?
No, it's a political problem.
So how
that the
should
court
that be?
cannot solve. This is not a problem that a court can resolve. And the Constitution is very clear on that. Unless, you see, the issues under 97(1), Constitution is clear how you can stay in Parliament when you join another party. It says, notwithstanding paragraphs G of clause 1 of this article, a measure of parties at the national level sanctioned by the party's constitution or membership of a coalition government of which his original party forms part shall not affect the status of any member of Parliament. So the Constitution itself knows that you can switch sides. But if you switch sides in a measure, you stay in Parliament. But when you switch sides, you have to leave. And the Constitution says a member of Parliament, then people are saying that it is because it should be understood to be of a future effect. The Constitution says a member of Parliament. Go and check the definition of a member of Parliament. A member of the current Parliament.
Right. Well, the Speaker's verdict on this argument of whether or not this matter should have future consequence, the interpretation of this particular article should have future consequence. It says, quote, if Article 97(1) G and H were to apply only to future parliaments, they will be rendered superfluous. By the time the next parliament is constituted, any member of parliament who has defected or switched political allegiance during the current parliament will no longer be in violation of this provision. They will start the next session aligned with their new party or as an independent. Thus, there will be no defection and the violation will be wiped clean.
Thank you. Now, the Constitution itself makes that provision. It provides for this scenario. It says a member of Parliament shall vacate his seat in Parliament upon dissolution of Parliament. So when Parliament is dissolved, you are gone. You are no longer a member of Parliament. Automaticity. Nothing is. So I should also go to court and say that, oh, Parliament has been dissolved. I'm no longer a member of Parliament, but I don't understand, so I need interpretation. This.
Well, you align with those who say that the language of 97(1) is
it's not about,
1AG.
Hold on. It's not about alignment.
It's clear in understanding.
See, unless the MPP is saying, no, the allegation that Cynthia Morrison is running as an independent candidate is not true. The allegation that Kwadwo Asante is running as an independent candidate in Suhum is not true. The allegation that Fomina, the independent member and the second deputy speaker of Parliament, has joined the NPP. It's not true.
Okay.
Unless, you see, it is under these circumstances that you go to the Supreme Court to litigate this matter. But when the facts supporting the operation of this provision are uncontroverted, then what exactly are you looking for?
Okay, let me bring in Lawyer Markwa here because he's part of the legal bureau of the MPP. Now, no.
I don't know how
don't contest it. That's him.
I don't know how.
What's his
I don't know how.
Okay, so in this particular situation that we're dealing with, the concern others have expressed is not about whether or not the Supreme Court has a jurisdiction. It's about the exposure of the Supreme Court to such political matters. And that also impacts on the perception that people have about the Supreme Court itself. It's not about right or wrong in this instance.
Sorry. My learned senior was saying something that my mind was rather there. So please repeat it, please. Which was educating us on some parliamentary procedures.
It's a fair point.
So please, please answer the question again.
It's a lot more about the bringing the Supreme Court into this matter. It's not so much about whether they have jurisdiction or not, which the matter has so far been settled based on the Supreme Court's declaration. But the exposure of the Supreme Court to such political matters, to the likes of Professor Jampo and Dr. Shidraman, impacts on the Supreme Court negatively, because a matter like this, in their view, the solution doesn't lie with the courts. Parliament must deal with their own issues. Well,
your question, please.
Essentially, is that should the Supreme Court really have been brought into this matter?
Okay. So, thank you very much. And this is the first time I'm meeting Roxanne on set. I've met several MPs on different sets since this matter started. And one thing that I normally say, and I want to underscore it here, is did you sense the passion with which he's speaking? And then we would do this, and what if we don't do that and that? I think that should be lessened.
Why?
Not just the passion, but the intents and whatnot, and the things that it shows that we are locking horns and we are I don't think it helps us. All right, because where am I? You see. Martin said, my former boss is his in-law. Probably, me and you, probably.
That's all in-law.
Some in-law is somewhere, probably, I don't know.
So make your point, yes.
You see, I think, and there are several cases. One of them is Nkonya Alavanyo matter. He went up to Supreme Court. He came back. I think you are closer to that place, are you, Roxanne? Yes. You see, till the government now militarize that place. All right. I think as leaders of us, and you guys are leaders, that's why I call you honorables, leaders, at times, and it's particularly so when we have a very important election where both the minority and majority in Parliament are trying to do something that hasn't been done before. Okay? And tensions are so high. I think we must be seen as solving problems. Okay? So that we'll be seen as statesmen. But we are now still in a political activism to the extent that now, for what my brother said, they may not even go and vote and get the quorum and nothing will happen and whatnot. That is not why we got you people into Parliament.
But you see, is that not the consequence of what we are talking about?
That is not why. And so, personally, to take this route, what we're saying, some has become majority, some has become minority. And then come to announce, and then we'll abolish this tax and we'll do this, and we'll use our majority to do this and that. The question now becomes, if even you're able to table that, would that not be a private member bill that touches on the coffers of the state that should come from the government?
No.
Will you get? Wait. Let me finish. Let me finish.
But the reduction.
But would you also get the support of the majority? That and I'm intentionally using the word majority because then we'll have another argument here. Because we are fighting majority, minority. Is that why I voted for you?
Majority in passing a bill cuts across. It's not coterminous to the caucus.
Whatever it is. You can't even make the word because they will insist we are the majority. And you insist. Is that why we got into parliament? No. Not at all.
Let me tell you something.
No. And then
1 minute. In 1 minute.
Okay, wait.
Gentlemen.
Because he's my learned friend. It's the first time I'm meeting him.
Yes. 1 minute. 1 minute.
Yes.
On the morning of 7th December 2021, something happened in
morning
Parliament.
of 7th December.
Yes. Something happened in Parliament.
Starting in 6.
We had
137.
137.
You mean 7 January?
2021.
7 January 2021.
Yeah.
Something happened in Parliament. NDC 137, NPP 137. You recall that we went to sit at the majority side.
Yes.
It took a CMA's letter to do business with the NPP to tilt that balance or that imbalance. With it came with benefits. In fact, NPP got opportunity to have a majority leader. They chaired all the committees that is chaired by the party with majority number.
Apart from
those that
public accounts.
Exactly.
So this the balance of power in Parliament comes with benefits.
So that is what I'm talking about.
So when you are making the argument, these are not whimsical matters.
No. I'm not saying it's whimsical. I am saying no. I'm not saying no. I'm not saying that.
So
I am saying
fighting over who is a majority or minority in Parliament. It has serious.
Yes, it has serious consequences.
Okay.
But those serious consequences,
why we voted into Parliament?
Yes, because the serious consequences you talk about seem to now. That's not how it's supposed to be. But it seems to now be the focus of everything that happens.
But that is how you control executive power.
Now make your point.
You must also look at Ghana. You must also look at why you are there. You must also
don't treat the power, the party that has been given the power.
Okay, now, thank you.
In Parliament.
Please.
Okay.
Me and you. We know there's a particular client that you were looking at and then the file came to me. So me and you, we have some...
Make your point.
Exactly.
Yes, okay.
See, so that is what will make... You see, when I was coming, I read some notice on Facebook and it's shameful. This is why they kill some of the judges because the person does not even understand. But I'm saying, I'm going to a point because the person doesn't even understand some of these issues. I'm bringing it up. The person doesn't even understand some of these issues, some of the fact that there has to be a job, the fact that we as lecturers, and I think you introduced Martin People as a lecturer. Have you gone back to the classroom, Martin?
No, let's make your point.
Small, okay. So we as lecturers, right? There are instances where something comes up and you need authorities from the Supreme Court. And there hasn't been any pronouncement. Then you go to Nigeria. They have a lot of these matters in Supreme Court. There are a lot of pronouncements on some of these things. Then you go to UK. Then you go to US. So for us, if some of these matters come to court as lecturers, it is good. Okay?
Right.
Now, everything I will say here, I will try to dance around the issue, not go and touch on it. The fact that whether 97 is futuristic or not, because that's a substantive matter before the court. All right. I could come and justify it here, but then I am being prejudicial to the matter before the court. And that's a substantial. And bear in mind that it is the stay that went to the Supreme Court. Okay? That was not successful. There's nothing to suggest. There's nothing to say that when the substantive matter is heard by the Supreme Court, it may not go in favor of I'm even struggling to see whether it's the Speaker or Parliament itself, and then the age is supposed to be the lawyer for the speaker. But he may not go in favor of the speaker, or he may not go in favor of Honorable Afenyo Makin. You cannot tell.
But I can understand. But you see, the basis and the foundation for this stay is the declaration by the speaker.
Exactly.
Of these 4 seats vacant.
Exactly.
Which is premised on Article 97 G and H.
Yes.
So you cannot discuss the matter without necessarily touching.
No, I will not. No, you cannot go into it that because this is the situation and therefore this is how it must be resolved. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
We all have views on that. Indeed. We all have views. We all have. You're tempting me to come into it. Okay, what happened? What happened under Speaker Michael Kwe? What happened under this one?
No, you have indicated now
the standing committees which were different. The standing orders, the standing orders of the Parliament which were different. One is 2000, one is 2023. The different provisions that is changed and all that. Okay, let's allow the Super. I know that they will do a detailed job at this, a proper job at coming with the rule, because you see, the decision that will come will not just be for this. And my brother went to market by saying that it's political. I do not know of any constitutional matter that will not have any political bearing. So, it's constitutional. Any other matter can also become political. Any other matter. And even when it is looked at in the sense that when you go to court, the court does not give legal advice or lectures. It will be a live matter between 2 opposing parties, and so their decision must resolve it in favor of one or the other. If there are about 7 reliefs, it could be that 5 will go in favor of one, 2 will go in favor of the other. But by all means, court international assembly it has to go one way or the other. So yes, it will have political ramifications, but at this moment in time, the court is looking at the constitutionality of it, so that going forward, this is how things are going to be happening. It is not. No one anticipated that we'll have 137 with the honorable member from MENA saying that he will do business. No one anticipated that. Now, we have had a chance to look at when something happens like this. How can we work together? Already before then, my brother, you guys were working together. Is that not the case? There are times when, for the optics of it, you guys will come on the floor of Parliament and have extended, representations. And I know my brother in particular, they're brofo, we speak and all that. In the end, don't you go and work together? In fact, the committees, all the veterans, all the things that we thought it would not happen. In the end, when doors were closed and you sat down, you made the veterans go through. Why? Because you are looking for what is in the interest of Ghana. I think, in this instance, you must also look at what is in the interest of Ghana. Let's give the court, when are they going back? 11th, isn't it? 11th. Is either, as we said, they will go back. And you see, you're saying Dominic Aina is my former boss. Thaddeus is also someone I can call any day, any time. Senior, this provision, look at order 82, look at this. Then we'll have a proper discussion. We've sat down, we're doing, that's the kind of relationship I have with Thaddeus. I did not expect Thaddeus to do less than what he did in court. He will do more. So that proper legal arguments are edged on the court. The court will take its time, and at times when they give the instantaneous ruling, I want them to. I wish they would do that. Take maybe a day or 2, come out a proper, written, reason that will all look to guide us going way forward. I see. But this issue of who's more powerful and this and that, I don't think. But I get the sense that you are going towards the proposal of some negotiated settlement. But I appeal to him. I am saying that all the matter, I have to do it. That is a way of getting there. Imagine I call me, imagine I tell my learners here, hey, what you go and do? You think the passion with which he was talking, he will even listen to me.
Did you want the passion with which CJ delivered her really?
Yes, of course. She's a CJ.
I'm speaking passionately.
She's a CJ. And you see, I don't see. Okay. You see, I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, let's look at the passion with which Jasa Tuguba when it was a Tubiga that came before him.
The contempt.
The contempt. Can you imagine? The force, let's look at your force, your power, and let's marshal the forces of the country against you, and let's see. Because there are times you have to, they are taught like that. Have you seen judges? Rarely would a judge sit on the bench and he's smiling. Very rarely. Because even if it's funny, they will find a way of, making a straight face.
Poker face.
Exactly. Because they are trained like that. It is so that, it is proper. No, it is proper.
Okay.
It's proper for
like
them. Yeah, it's proper for them to hold. You see that crest?
Emotionless.
That crest behind them. That's the power of the state. They must bring some clarity on issues, and it will definitely go one way or the other. Because of that, they must give a declaration. A declaration is given with that. Let's look at when the Parliament in UK was prorogued. All right?
Okay.
It went to the Supreme Court. Mind you, in UK, we know a parliamentary supremacy, don't we? Even there, the prorogation, it went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court rescinded that decision. Let's look at paragraph 70 of that decision. That's what I'm saying. It follows that Parliament has not been prorogued and that this court should make declarations to that effect. How different is that? The play is that we said that they are exiled parliamentary supremacy. Why? Because thanks to Right Honourable Tony Blair, he now removed the House of Lords from the Supreme Court from the House of Lords. So when they said they could turn a man into a woman into a man, the apex court was part of it's a committee under the House of Lords. Now it's not. You see, so the world is moving away from that kind of concept, but we do so measuredly because Parliament must still exercise their work, and as my brother said, they build consensus. In building consensus, you call it resolution, isn't it? Yeah. You resolve by building consensus. Okay. So anything that will take you away from that, it is that organ from the country.
No. But
nobody has done that. Nobody has done that. Nobody has done that. Because you can tell that on this matter, my delivery has been in such a way because look at the budget for the first quarter of next year. How is it going to? Exactly. But you see, if you look, but if you do this, you know who's going to be suffering? Two elephants are fighting. What? They also are whose salaries are going to be done out of that. Those are the ones.
So I get the sense that necessarily you're saying that the solution to this problem doesn't lie really with
I'm not saying that. I am saying when the Supreme Court, which has the jurisdiction to do what it's doing, does it. All right? You must still go and do business together. Let's not make it that because the Supreme Court's jurisdiction has been invoked, because the Supreme Court will not ordinarily come and say, hey, you people, come, let me do. No. Someone has to invoke it. Once the Supreme Court's jurisdiction has been invoked and they do their job, the two of you. And the funny thing is that, even in spite of this, these guys are friends.
Indeed. So let me find out. What's the I want to come to Prof. John Paul. What's the you're a member of the legal bureau of the MPP.
Please.
Communication.
I've been a member of the National Communications team. I am now a member of the Legal Directorate. Headed by your lawyer, Gary.
He's a big man.
I'm telling you. Okay.
So, but I do that too. Just like your director of legal. It's too much. That's like Edwin does communication and legal. Exactly.
It's a fair point.
But I am not a head of the legal.
So you are a member of the legal directorate.
No.
What is the status of those three MPs? Cynthia Morrison, that's Kojo, and then also Isiama.
Okay.
What's their status?
So you see what was even that, and this almost goes into the numbers, and I refuse to do that. You see that previously the party that wrote to Parliament. This other party hasn't written.
Yes.
And you see that for Cynthia and probably for the rest too. You see that they were Fenyomakin, my very senior brother, one of my mentors, Kene Japong, and people like that met him. There were photo shoots. Unfortunately, the narrative under the photo shoot says that Cynthia has agreed to come back. Then she issued a counter. Yeah. So you see, that is the attempt at saying, Charlie, let's work together. We are even solving that problem. So and then this unfortunate narratives now fittles that. So, as far as we are concerned, and I have always said that, as far as you see, this particular election, it is 50% plus one.
Okay. So what's the
So whatever we would do, whatever we would do to make sure they are where they are, which is with us, will continue.
No, but what is their status now? Are they still?
They are members of the party.
They are MPP MPs.
Yes.
But does that violates your party's own constitution?
Yeah, but then you see, I have said that.
Taking some of them from your WhatsApp.
No, but no.
But that doesn't mean anything.
No, but if
their party
they
has
are still MPP MPs.
Their party has to issue a letter, and I refuse to go beyond this because that determines the matter before the Supreme Court.
Okay, now I'll bring Prof. down, but you see, if you still maintain the point that they are still NPP MPs, here's what your constitution says. A member may be expelled from the party on grounds of misconduct in accordance with provisions of this constitution, and upon such expulsion shall cease to be a member. Let's go to the next slide. It says, no member shall be expelled unless such expulsion is affected in accordance with the provisions of Article 4. The next one, forfeiture of membership. A member of the party who stands as an independent candidate against the officially elected member of the party, or who joins or declares his or her support for another political party for an independent candidate, when the party has sponsored a candidate in a general or by-election, automatically forfeit his or her membership of the party. So the party doesn't even have to write.
No. You just
read
speak now. The first line you said, shall be expelled. There has been an expulsion, isn't it? Has there been an expulsion?
Let's go to point 9. Point 9 is the forfeiture of membership.
No. You premised it on expulsion. Has the party expelled them?
That's a different.
It's not, but you premise it on that.
So forfeiture of membership. That's what is on the screen now. You can see it.
Yeah, but you premise it on expulsion by the party.
That's a different provision.
How is it not linked to that?
Gentlemen, wait. A member of the party who stands as an independent candidate against the officially elected member of the party, or who joins or declares his or her support for another political party or for an independent candidate, when the party has sponsored a candidate in a general by-election, automatically forfeits his or her membership of the party. That's why I asked a specific question about the status of these persons. If you say that they are still MPP MPs, that violates this provision of your constitution. Let the party take the necessary steps. There has to be an expulsion. These are conditions. Let the party take the necessary step. And you see, you are talking to someone who is a member of the party. And I've already told you that the one vote we needed. So why do you think we would take steps that will not deprive us of that? But it is for us to actually talk to them and say, this is what, we need you back and all that. We haven't done so. So why do you want to go? But based on their step, they have automatically expelled themselves.
No, yes, but you are saying you've expelled yourself, right?
No, I'm not the one saying. It's the constitution of your party.
But look at 97. 97 said the person shall leave. 97 of the constitution. Has anyone done that?
No, 97.
So it is murky. It is murky where you are going with the situation where you will not allow the Supreme Court to make pronouncement on this. Both parties will urge their party, including the party constitution and every other thing, on the court. Until that happens, from today is the second. Is it the third? Second. By the way, congratulations to, why are you wearing green? Anyway,
okay.
Congratulations to all Prempeh College students. Today as our 75th anniversary.
Professor Jampo, let me bring you in on this point, on this matter, please.
Yes. You're wearing green.
Prof.
Thank you very much.
And from the governor's perspective, no, gentlemen, don't distract me. No. We'll do that at the end of the show. Thank you. Prof. Jampo. Yes. Don't be tempted to go into this.
No, I won't go into that. He can't distract me. You see, there should be an elite consensus of, on what we believe to be right and what is wrong in our democratic practice, and then also in the way and manner we think our courts and judges should conduct themselves. I think that what is right, what is wrong, shouldn't be contingent on one's personal idiosyncrasies, one's perceived partisan leanings, and then one's belief in different schools of thought. So that Martin will say, if it were me, I would have done it like this. And Bobby will say, well, they could have also done. Can't we have an elite consensus on what we all agree that this is right, so that we go by it? So if we sit here, you see, we are all young. My father told me before he died that young people, we should be challenging the status quo, just to bring about development, and not always saying, oh, he said it, he was not wrong, and but you could have also said it like this, and that wouldn't have also been wrong. And then, so depending on where you stand, things go either way. I believe that don't you are not that young. Okay,
that's fine.
You want to die young?
No. For example,
all right. You are going. You've been raising metal. See your chest. You say you are not.
Thank you. For example,
so on this particular matter, I thought that it could have been handled in a manner that would quickly address the constitutional crisis in which I see we plaguing ourselves with. And then the Speaker's application for the stay of execution of the Supreme Court order are completely...
It wasn't the Speaker who filed the application.
I think you like it.
No. The Speaker's application set aside. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. How it was completely thrown out. I thought that Speaker Bagben, when he started practicing as a lawyer, I'm sure many of the people on the bench were not even lawyers. Okay, and so I found it difficult to understand how a judgment could be ruled, could be given in a manner that suggests that he was so wrong, and his lawyer, that eminent Tadiosori, also was so wrong, and nothing was right about the motion that they filed in court. I thought that couldn't we have handled this in a manner that would have seen some gain, something good, some semblance of about but all of them unanimously saying that Bagben's case has no merit. I said, Bagben, so he doesn't know any law like that?
No, that's not what it means.
Well,
that's not what it means.
You said what?
Okay. That's not what it means.
How it works. You are saying everything said doesn't amount to master, but there's a guy who should have been recused. Straight. That one is no brainer. The optics look bad. An MPP member sitting on an MPP case.
No. Let Professor Jampo.
You see,
let Professor gentlemen, hold on.
I have
want to bring all lawyers here. They want to gang up against but they can't.
Let Professor Jampo conclude on the point. Let him conclude on the point.
Exactly.
Hold on. Thank you. For Jampo, please.
So, for me, the throwing out of Speaker Bagben's case, I was disappointed. I was surprised. I felt that it can never be true that there was absolutely no little merit in whatever he sought to present before the court. And I think that this was done in a manner that, in my view, disrespected the authority of Parliament, and it festers that, in my view, that bogus attempt to make Parliament subservient to the judicial arm of government. I don't think that would work at all, because, see, long before lawyers came into existence, and long before constitutions and laws were made, political thinkers, political philosophers, political theorists, and political scientists existed.
Long before what?
Long before laws were formulated. In fact, law before laws were formulated and constitutions were formulated and lawyers were... Oh, so let me make my point. Yeah, when we were beating about the bush, I kept quiet.
So, I was beating about the bush. Really?
So long before lawyers came into existence, long before constitutions were formulated. Okay? Political thinkers, political philosophers, political theorists, and political scientists existed. And it was their postulations and formulations that gave birth to the promulgations of constitution. That's how come John Locke is referred to as the father of constitutionalism. Okay, he was the first person to talk about the need for constitutions to check the rule of the sovereign and blah 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 blah.
He was a political thinker.
So he was a political thinker. So they were already in existence, and many of them had propounded theories that have existed and theories that have given birth to the functioning of the modern day political institutions that we operate. So you can talk about Baron de Montesquieu talking about separation of powers, A.V. Dicey talking about checks and balances, rule of law, etc., etc. Now, in the postulations of these political thinkers, okay, they look at the hierarchy of authority and power. They look at the structures of power and the organs of government, and they argue that these organs of government are independent of each other. So they are supposed to be separated from each other, and they are also supposed to be independent of each other, even though they also make room for checks and balances. But they never argue that the existence of checks and balances is supposed to be exercised in a manner that makes each or any of the organ of government subservient to the other. Okay, so they go on. If you look at all their readings, you do readings and look at what they stand for and all that. They try, okay, even though these organs of government are supposed to be equal to each other, they try to see who is who. And I have been disappointed that some people have spoken more about constitutional supremacy and are thinking that if you are talking about sovereignty and supremacy, it should always, within the state, it should always be with constitutions and not with people. Okay, but who designed constitutions?
We the people.
Okay, it is human beings who prepare the constitution. And so you can never talk about constitutional supremacy. If you're talking about supremacy and sovereignty, it resides more with the people. The people draft constitutions. And among the organs of government, where are the people who drafted the constitution? Where are they located? Where are they adequately and properly represented? It is on the floor of Parliament.
Indeed.
I've always, last 2 weeks, I made the point, I'm making the point again, that you need 50% plus 1 to become the executive president of the land. Not all Ghanaians elected are president. Okay? Now, in other jurisdictions, to make justices of the courts accountable to the people, they are elected. But if you come to our part of the world, judges are appointed, and you are trying to say that, but if they are appointed, they are approved by Parliament. You see, Martin said he is a realist. I'm a super realist. You should be questioning yourself. Why oftentimes members of Parliament say, look, this man, we are not going to approve. This one, we are not going to let the person go through. And then all of a sudden, the person goes through. There was this case of one MP, one ministerial nominee, that all the minority side were at him that, look, this particular nominee were never going to, and they came out publicly. We are never, Ken Oforiatta, for instance, didn't you hear? We are not going to approve him. But that nominee that they spoke louder against her nomination was the one who even had more of the support in terms of votes
from the minority.
Yeah, from all of them. But I'm saying that as a realist, you should go behind the scenes to question what really happened. Isn't it the expression of the political kinkonism structure or stature of the president that tries to go behind the scenes to manipulate people and arrangements just to be able to ensure that the president's choice is always sailing through. So my point, well, but you are asking what I'm saying.
On both of them.
You are asking what I'm saying. Don't you know?
No, let's lay the blame on both of them.
So Manasseh's book, Joe Wise admitted that they are about to do certain business. They bring money from the presidency,
and no one challenged, controverted the issue. So let him proceed. Let me finish my point. Let him conclude. What is your problem? Let me finish. No. All right. So in trying to, please. No. Can I finish? Listen. Can I finish? Let me finish.
Make your point.
I will have my say.
Let me finish.
I will also have my say.
So the point is this. The point is this. So in trying to locate sovereignty and who is who, okay, it is settled. And I said that, you see, many of the lawyers that I've seen, you just went to school to do law. You would have been better served if you had done, I went to school Form 1 to Form 5 and 6th form. If you had done O-level government, if you had done A-level government, when you went to SHS, if you had done some government before going to do law. I mean, this one is so elementary that the literature is settled on supremacy of parliament. And why do they say supremacy of parliament without even going to the literature? Common sense. Where are the people located? It is within the floor of parliament that all Ghanaians, whether you live in the sea, whether you live on land, whether you are in the jungle, you are all represented on the floor of parliament. Okay, you are all represented on the floor of parliament. And to the extent that sovereignty belongs to the people, it is where the people operate and function that you can say that you can locate sovereignty and you can say that they are supreme. And so by this analysis, I would find it difficult. Okay, I'm not saying that Parliament should lord it over the other arms of government, but you see, in the idea of constitutionalism, Parliament exists as a countervailing authority to the powers of the executive, so that power must always be in existence to counter the exercise of power. Lord Acton say, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so you always need Parliament to assert its authority to be able to hold in check the functioning of the executive arm of government. In much the same way, Parliament must exercise, its functions and powers in a manner that, like I argued earlier, not to be seen so much as, look, you are controlling or you are commanding or dictating, to other arms of government, but they must peacefully, coexist in harmony, such that even though I locate, or the literature locates sovereignty at the doorstep of Parliament, it will not be so overbearing and be trying to overshadowing the other arms of government. And so when Parliament, in spite of its powers and its supremacy, is being asked to be circumspect and measured in the way it conducts its activities, you would not expect another arm of government that, like the judiciary, to want to make Parliament, that is sovereign and supreme, subservient to it. I was completely surprised that why are we going this route? That so we want to be in Ghana here, where parliamentary proceedings will be going on. Somebody may say, look, I disagree with what is going on in Parliament. It takes the matter to court to injunct the Parliament, wait until court settles the matter. That cannot happen within an era of the kind of relationship that is expected to be existing between the arms of government. What I know is a principle of judicial review. When Parliament makes law that are unconstitutional, the judges are given the power under the concept of judicial review to take a second look at those laws and to say whether they are constitutional or unconstitutional, and that is it. You don't stop Parliament, you don't grind Parliament to a halt because you disagree with them. And you see, when we allow this to fester and to go on, we are headed for a deepened constitutional crisis, because I know if Parliament truly wants to assert its independence, and its Parliament is headed by the kind of speaker we have today, you can be sure that the Speaker would ensure that Parliament asserts itself also as a power block and also as a sovereign body where that provides an avenue for the representation of the people who are the owners of power that these power brokers, exercise. And so you can be sure that if Parliament is going to say that, look, we are not going to pay heed to this, we are not going to respect this. And if they are also going to say that we are citing even some members of the courts for contempt for impeding the flow of their work, where are we going to head to? So my point is that we know that Parliament all over the world is a master of its own processes. Everybody knows my position on the ruling of Speaker Okwe, and everybody knows my position on the ruling of Speaker Bagben. For me, I said they were both wrong, and I've adduced a lot of reasoning to back that. So that is not my focus now. But I'm saying that in going to in taking the matter to court, I think whoever did that was wrong. We could have allowed Parliament to sit. We could have allowed leadership of Parliament to dialogue, because Parliament is a master of its own processes. Let them sit, dialogue. The Speaker is a human being. I'm told the day that they adjourned Sinodine, he met with the Afinomakins and his group. He met with them, and I'm sure that when they met, they didn't go and fight. They dialogued, and so the Speaker is a human being.
No, they dialogued before the agenda.
Yes. So, but my point is that when they went there, they didn't go and fight, and so the Speaker is a human being. Majority leadership, minority leadership, you bring all of them together. Let us sit down and talk about what we think will be in the interest of Ghana. Like I said earlier, we should have an elite consensus of what we believe would be good for Ghana, and let us all pursue, rather than doing partisan politics and this intransigence. And look at, I saw the way a manner the Chief Justice was sounding in his utterances, not conciliatory at all, very adversarial, and I was wondering what may be going on in the minds of Speaker Bagben. If he gets his day, he would also want to speak his mind. And at the end of the day, where will we be heading to? And so this is where I argue that this matter cannot be settled by the Supreme Court. If we want peace, if we want to move on as a nation, if we want to ensure that there is no chaos in the lead up to elections, I am happy that I've been told that Council of State have met with Speaker Bagben. And I want to hope and believe that Council of State would also try and meet with the Supreme Court or the Chief Justices. Around this time, it is not only about law. My lawyer was telling me, Gary, he said the law is made up of 70% common sense. Okay, so in my view, given what is going on, whatever the way and manner the Supreme Court is going about things, the Speaker of Parliament would by all means also show the Supreme Court that they are also a power block, and indeed they are they house the people of Ghana. Yes. They provide the avenue where the people of Ghana are properly housed and represented. And so they would also flex muscles. And if you are going to allow muscles to be flexed, and you will not allow others to come in to intervene to help, then it is going to be difficult, for us. So I'm calling on Council of Elders, a Council of State, to double up their actions and to make sure that they bring both sides together with the purpose of the view to bring in effective resolution, win-win resolution to this matter. I was working at the IEA during the 2008 elections, and I know that power was never going to be handed over after the 2008 elections. But we know the role that some eminent Ghanaians played behind the scenes. The role that certain eminent Ghanaians played behind the scenes. They didn't sleep. At night, they were calling people, talking to them and all that. I expect all these eminent Ghanaians to rise up and speak, to rise up and intervene, with the view to ensuring that there is a certain resolution of this impasse. If you leave it to the Supreme Court alone, I tell you that we cannot have a resolution because Parliament would always assert its authority. It also to prove a point that they are also a force to reckon with, in terms of the power structure, within the state.
Professor Ransford Jampo, in fact, someone just said to me that law in its purest sense, indeed, undiluted and also very clear, not contaminated. It is nice. But the moment you introduce politics, just a bit of politics into law, you would have created the most potent witchcraft ever created in humanity. We'll be back shortly after this quick break. Dr. Atta Kennedy is joining us right after this quick break. Dr. Atta Kennedy is joining us. In fact, he's on right now. So we'll go for this quick break. When we're back, he would have his take on this matter. Stay with us.
Okay. The 5 kg of rice has moved from 25 cedis to 165. Oh.
Hey! Boss, cement moved from 24 cedis to 105 cedis now. Hey!
The kenke is 5 cedis. The fish, I have 10, 15, and 20 cedis. Which one do you want?
Hey!
Stop the A.
Hey!
Vote for change. Vote for John Mahama and the NDC.
I'm a Ghanaian, and I love luxury accredited faith, and I love democracy.
December 7th, Ghana is voting.
Only peace. Peace, I give it to you all.
I love Ghana.
Peaceful election before, during, and after.
One Ghana.
Peace. Peace to everybody.
One Ghana. Ghana.
This message brought to you from the luxury accredited faith.
Hey, you be champion!
Said you're the era of construction and fashion and non unko school and fahokra ubetima besuya edia kanwadwuma kra ho your long vehicle track articulator forklifts operating excavator operating fashion and sewing electricals and plumbing works said insanu dwuma de yase bia enwa na ekọ fast any Ghana ban Kabum and 2 years yapeno now
Miss Wonder Victor Kuto. I am a lawyer by profession and a National Executive Committee member of the NDC. As we approach the December 7th election, I urge you all to vote John Mahama. I believe in the National Women's Bank. Ghanaians have accepted this policy proposal.
Am I because you want to perform? It is private here born say John Mahama obe winning no one fan koko asu dwe kwanso.
Enya mbankwa na ebe boa mu. Ebe boa obi bia. So obi bia mbombo say obe tu abama John Dramani Mahama.
It's time to reset Ghana with a trustworthy leader. And JM is that leader to vote for. Akpenami, Midawasi, Yenyuwaladon, Nagode.
Get ready for a night of pure Ghanaian vibes. Remember, the stakes are high. At least 2 contestants will be evicted. Voting is ongoing and closes at 8 p.m. on Sunday, 3rd November 2024. Mentor, the world awaits.
Mentor 13 is powered by Shaltox Lozenges.
Sponsored by Darling Lemon Drink, Darling XYZ Wine, Blue Jeans Energy Drink, Enapa Foods, Frutelli Calipo, Obuasi Nubunawo Mwankasa,
when they join us, manya have you, Ajihagan. We have this man who used to be the Prince of Goals. Right now, he's a king. So he's got another guy who's like a genius. So we call him King Junior.
I have problem with our scouting. Okay. Because if we were able to scout good players, I mean, we'll have a good team.
There are two people, different people. Don't get it twisted.
Showbiz 360 shows every Saturday at 8 p.m. on TV3.
Brought to you by
Betway. Winner big.
Welcome back to Key Point on TV3. We're live on 3FM 92.7, also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. Now, there's a statement that was made by Professor Kofi Abochi that has been couched and sent to me. A statement referenced, or his reference in this statement, says the Supreme Court has a 40-year jurisprudence starting from to for an Attorney General affirmed in 1996, in which the Supreme Court stayed true to the courts by deciding that it does not interfere in happenings within Parliament. Therefore, in terms of the internal administration of Parliament, the Supreme Court says it is not interested. And the reason for that is that the court seeks to maintain and ensure interbranch harmony by avoiding conflict because they both have different jurisdictional mandates. The court does not want to go inside Parliament. In 2004, the expression used was, happenings in Parliament represent a closed book scenario. They are not going to open the book, and so if the court should stay true to its original jurisprudence, in terms of any application brought before it now, will have to be limited to determining the correctness by which, or rather, to undetermine the propriety by which the Speaker exercised his mandate. That means the Supreme Court can look at whether the Speaker exercised his mandate properly, whether the circumstance for exercising the mandate has arisen, whether the scope and jurisdictional boundaries of the mandate has been respected, and the Speaker has not gone beyond that. So, thank you for that reference point as well. And then also a number of your messages coming through on this and, in fact, other issues. Professor says, I side with Professor Jampo 100% on the question of the sovereignty, of where the sovereignty resides. As an A-level government student, I was faced with that argument and always once scored high marks when the case was argued in favor of the legislature. Our judiciary is being preposterous, you say. Please cause it to be read. Okay, as indicated. Thank you. And then also, I'll introduce...
Make your point.
Albert.
Okay, you make your point.
This matter, this matter is a... Prof. Jampo made a lot of commentary about the fact that some people came and that influenced the law and whatnot. And I say I disagree.
Okay.
Then you mentioned John Locke. John Locke was born in 1632, all right? And it says here that he, in a manner of Francis Bacon precedes him. Francis Bacon was the Chief Justice, all right? So I think you should have put in such a way that it is influenced, the law is influenced by philosophical, you see, like Montesquieu. Montesquieu proposed separation of powers. So Montesquieu in the 1700s. There has always been law. In fact, so exactly, there was law. Hammurabi's, there was law. So it is wrong to say that.
The three oldest professions in this world is what? Law, prostitution, and what? Religion.
And the religion. Yeah, exactly. So you see, it is not now that we are going to talk about sovereignty lies with that. And someone says he's doing his A-levels. Has a person read the Constitution?
Okay.
And so you see, when we have actually broken it down without doing partisan, without looking at who precedes who and whatnot, Someone sent me also text that he likes my submission because it is emotional maturity. Okay. And that is how we achieve things.
Indeed.
You see? Okay. And Prof, please. Prof, please. Prof.
You know,
Prof, no.
I give you calipo.
And Prof, listen. Let me laugh. And Prof, you see, I can see a lot of gray hair in your calipo. Oh, you people, I collected it. I wish there was something in relation to Baumia, and then I would have. But this is Old Testament. Now, listen, Prof, the last one is a side issue, though. I can see a lot of gray hair. Some of us don't have gray, but we are old.
Okay.
I am older than you. I also did not go to SS. So I think that part too probably you could have put in it. Otherwise, Martin went to SS. Some of us, Martin went to SS. Otherwise, to imply that all those who went to SS, those of us as who did A levels, we know better than them. No, Martin has really distinguished himself in his social profession, and he did SS.
I told you that the doctors in Kolebu, most of them are SS.
Exactly.
Be careful.
That is why I'm saying that this I did A level, you did that one too.
Okay. Thank you.
I think it wasn't.
Let me acknowledge Professor.
Because
let me, gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you.
I am older than you.
Thank you very much. This one here says your microphones are off.
Looking at our
this one here says Prof Jampo is educating us.
Earlier than I.
It says we are learning a lot from the program as a student of governance. I need more of this. Thank you. This one here also, Dr. Arthur Kennedy is joining us right now. Is a senior member of the MPP for that matter. And Dr. Arthur Kennedy, good morning. Thank you for joining us on TheKeyPoints.
John Locke is known as the father of liberalism.
Hello, Doc. Good morning.
Good morning.
We can hardly hear you.
Well, I am traveling, so my internet connection is not really as good as this morning. Can you hear me now?
There's a bit of an echo, so we'll correct that and then I'll come back to you again. But great. This one here from Lawyer Kakasamoa says, did the NPP lawyer, I'm sure you're talking about Lawyer Mwakwa, noticed the passion of the Chief Justice when she was issuing, you say, the threats all over? You say, thank you. This man also from, okay. Your message got truncated at some point. Good morning. As I am watching you from the Upper East Region Intelligence, Bobby Bansing says he's doing justice to the topic. You say, thank you. Hardy from Pig Farm. Good morning. Professor Jampo should not accept this half-hearted apology. This individual has defeated or defamed you with intent and aggression. Consider filing a lawsuit. You say, well, he has forgiven him. Papa Bishu says, our very dear country is temporarily very sick. On that note, allowing this regime to continue the future, you say, is very bleak, and you list the ball of Kenke and Calipo and so on.
The ball of Kenke too. I brought a ball of Kenke too.
That's all.
7 CDs. That is it. 7 CDs. And then, fish. 7 CDs.
Alfred.
No, wait.
So you brought this.
Is this what we should be doing here? Alfred.
Wait.
Alfred, is this what we should be doing here?
I didn't even know.
Alfred, is this what we should be doing here, Alfred?
Really? And how much is
really?
The cost of living is a problem.
But you don't want empirical evidence. No, you don't want empirical evidence.
No, I see. No.
And some places is what 15 CDs.
You say how much do you buy this?
7 CDs. And some places, yes.
No, but I'm saying that.
No. I see. Let me go on to. Let me. This is okay. Let's go on to the next issue. You shouting. You shouting.
Come and address which are legally inclined, and then you allow this one
shouting. Hey, cost of living. But
it's okay. Hold on. Let me go on to the next one. This one says, I want to provide him with some documents. Armed Forces regulations. The microphone is off, actually. This one here says that, greetings, please inform Martin people that I want to make, okay, so I want to provide him some documents, Armed Forces regulations, you say. Thank you. That I'm sure is on the side issue. This one here says, Musa Abatwa in Aswase, Alfred, if lawyer Banson's argument is anything to go by, should, in case John Mahama assume office in 2025, if lawyer Amaleba should be appointed as Chief Justice simply because he denounced his membership with NDC, with all due respect to him, law without the application of common sense is useless, you say. For me, the Supreme Court has not been fair to the people of Saul if their ruling emphasized on people's representation. Hence, the decision to deny Saul representation serves government's political interest, you say. And there's the other one as well. There's also, says the future is pregnant. Henry from Koforidia, the 5 Supreme Court judges could not have accepted the Speaker Abambagwin's plea to set aside the injunction placed on Parliament because they felt that they would become an embarrassment in this situation. It is sad that the Supreme Court, which is to make things clearer for us, is rather making this difficult and confusing for us to understand. And there's also Professor Kweku Azar. Good morning. Thank you very much for also the post and the message. He says, politicians can champion a position in the morning and oppose it by evening, but the courts cannot afford such inconsistency. Their very survival depends on stability and adherence to principle. Courts derive their legitimacy from the steadfast, even-handed application of the law. The moment they falter, interpreting the same facts to support jurisdiction in one case but deny it in another, they chip away public trust. Courts cannot extol the right to a fair hearing only to decide some cases in ex parte hearings. Courts can't resolve some disputes in a matter of hours, while others equally significant languish for years. Courts can't enjoin an MP from serving their constituents for 15 months, while underscoring the sanctity of representation in other cases. People can accept decisions they disagree with, as long as those decisions are consistent. What citizens resist is what they perceive as Anansi justice for some and in Tikuma justice for others. Such disparities breed suspicion and resentment. When courts fail to apply principles evenly, the public tunes out, disregarding rulings that may, in truth, contain sound reasoning. Consistency isn't just an ideal, it's the foundation of judicial legitimacy. Dr. Arthur Kennedy, do you align with these concerns as well, as espoused by Professor Kweku Azar?
Mostly, but not completely.
Which ones do you align with exactly?
So I think that, let me first go to what the public has debated about what Speaker Babin did, and the question of whether the answer is completely judicial or indeed judicial and political. I think it is both judicial and political. And to illustrate that, I remind your viewers of the 1996 case between Rawlings and Akar that never went to court. If you remember, Akar, who was the sitting vice president, agreed to join Kufuor as a running mate while still sitting as the vice president of Rawlings. And if you recall, Rawlings tried to, in effect, forcefully get him out of a cabinet meeting. Let us suppose that Mr. Rawlings had, as would have been appropriate, gone to court to say that Akar had lost the right to stay as vice president because he couldn't be trusted. To tell Rawlings that Akar, who was going to run on Kufuor's ticket to try and remove him, will be trusted as a sitting vice president and take part in deliberations that might include his confidential strategy about the election, would be to ignore human nature. So there was a concern there. In the same way, if an NDC MP with a year left to election announced that he will run on the MPP ticket in the next election, but wants to participate in the MPP caucus. Human nature will make us understand that it will be unfair to tell the MPP that they should still trust that MP because they wouldn't trust his ability to keep their confidences and, more important, his willingness to keep their welfare at heart. So I posit that the response to the conundrum posed by the 4 MPs is clearly legal, but it is also political at some level. And to talk about politics, if you recall, at the beginning of 2021 in Parliament, Babin ruled because of the peculiar circumstance and the number of MPP members and NDC members that there were not going to be majority and minority caucuses, but majority and minority groups. And both parties accepted that because it was practical in a situation that was not clearly foreseen by the Constitution. As Professor Kweku Azar makes very clear in his right, I'm talking about the man announcing justice. He's right that courts must be consistent when you look at the justification case, when you look at Central Fear Apofo, Lobi and Lipe case in which they have not had representation. The fact that in the Quaison case, the court comfortably suspended Quaison's ability to represent his constituents, but on this case, hammering away at the right of constituents to representation. It begs the question of whether the constituents in Jackie Quaison's place and the constituents in Saul and the constituents in these 4 constituents are not all Ghanaians. If they are all Ghanaians, then one would posit that they ought to be treated by a consistent standard. That is what Professor Asare talks about stable principles and what the lawyers here, with apologies, will call stare decisis, which means that courts respect their own precedents and there is predictability. That is also why, for example, Chatuchi Kata will talk about a judicial crisis that is more significant than the economic crisis that we have. So, I do not pretend that I can lecture all the eminent lawyers listening and the lawyers on your panel about law, but I can tell them a little bit about politics. I think that people say that a judge is indeed a lawyer who knows a precedent. So, yes, the Supreme Court has the final say on law, and as people say, they are infallible because they are final. They are not final because they are infallible. But we know that there is always the judgment of history. The fact that the court said something doesn't mean that eternally we will all believe that. And long before Western law came, we had our own common sense native law, which ruled and applied the same principles that Western law applies. So if we look into history and you look at, for example, Marbury versus Madison, a decision made as far back as 1803, but it has stood the test of time and drawn the admiration of people across centuries. In contrast, when you look at the Prescott decision, 1857, Plessis versus Ferguson, 1897, and etc. in the US, all the way up to the Chevron case. And if you come to Ghana, there are cases that have and will continue to live in infamy, like Ray Akoto, like, for example, the Amu case, in which the case of parliamentary elections that were taken to court languished for the full term before the court ruled, when it didn't matter, that indeed the applicant was right, that had been invalidly disqualified from being a member of parliament. Okay. And of course, we know about the Domino case. When this same court sat, when it was urgent and harm, like the Supreme Court Chief Justice eloquently talked about, was being done not just to Mr. Domino, but to the people of Ghana, they happily look the other way. As we sit here, the president has been attempted with the LGBT law, and they are happily sitting there. So it will seem, as Professor Azar eloquently said, that the speed in some cases and the slowness in some cases appear inconsistent, and to common sense interpretation seems blatantly political.
Right.
There is also the question of respect.
Yes.
I think that we undermine the stability of our system when we trifle with Parliament and the Speaker. This is not about Speaker Babin Asane. It is about the institution of Parliament.
Right.
It is the only branch of government that can do executive oversight. So when we demean and disrespect it, we indirectly undermine the foundations of our collective governance. Finally, I also think that one of the most important essences of the judiciary, and particularly of the Chief Justice, is what we call judicial temperament. Anger, the issuing of threats, telling people that the court will do whatever it likes and not. The very body language does not connote judicial temperament and respect for co-equal branches of government. And indeed, historically, even when we say co-equal branches of government, we are flattering the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court doesn't have an army. As Justice Scalia once said, he was somewhere traveling outside the United States. Somebody said,
right.
So why do people listen to you? He said, what do he said? In other parts of the world, sometimes courts make decisions and they are ignored. The ability of people to respect court decisions and respond to it directly comes from goodwill and the fact that everybody sees the role of the court in society. When a court gets so political, it will get to a time when people will not respect the court's ruling. And even in almighty United States, there have been, instances when presidents have not respected courts. There's the famous case of Eisenhower who said, let the Chief Justice go and enforce his own ruling. So let us be careful here. Let the Chief Justice tread with caution and with respect. And I think that, yes, this is a judicial question, but it is also a political question that we need to tread very cautiously and tread very respectfully and maintain what classically is called judicial temperament, which is that judges must never demonstrate anger and disrespect and the kind of emotions that we do not associate with the impartial administration of justice.
A very important, in fact, number of points that you make there about this matter not being about Speaker Bagbin, but about the institution of Parliament. And if we're not careful, we may end up, as it were, indirectly undermining the foundations of our democracy that we are practicing. But on the matter of the politics and the law, the Chief Justice held in her view, when this objection was raised about the presence of Justice Yao Gao's presence on the panel, in her view, this matter was a constitutional issue and not a political party case or political issue, because this was a matter of the invocation of the Supreme Court's jurisdiction. But then again, taking into consideration the previous alignment and association of Justice Gao's, as it were, party affiliation, was that a concern for you, based on where you sat, as was raised by others and as has been indicated earlier this morning on this program, that just for the optics, not maybe for the law, but for the optics and the perception that the public would have, that should have been considered in the scheme of things? Hello, Doc. If you can unmute for me. If you can unmute for me, I didn't hear you. Hello? Hello?
From here,
yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. So, I, frankly, given human nature, do not believe that somebody who has been clearly a partisan should sit on this case on the presumption that that person is impartial. In fact, in the same way that in my opinion piece, I felt that Speaker Babin was playing politics even though he was cloaked in the gaps of a neutral speaker. It is also true that Justice Gao and other members of the court have clearly been partisans in the past, would have served us better if they had recused themselves. After all, I mean, the Supreme Court has had about 10 or so other members, and you could have been able to find a panel of 5, none of who had any obvious ties to the MPP or for that matter to the NDC, or whose ties were not that blatant. So I think that for the sake of appearances and conflict of interest, the court should have disqualified Justice Gao from sitting on that case.
The court held otherwise. And with what we are confronted now, is it a matter of whether the Supreme Court has jurisdiction or not, or the concern of the precedents that this is setting for future instances in court? Do you share that concern as well?
And I actually think in the Chief Justice, he has the question of the administration level. But I worry about the precedent that is being set. And I also worry about the fact that all of us have not considered the nuances of the case as well as we should. And as I make clear in my reference to the Rawlings and the Amu cases, some of these things are not just about law. And for example, looking at this particular case, if this parliament had, say, 2 years to go, it would have been very easy to declare the seats as vacant, go to a by-election, and if those people would contest on their new tickets, they could have contested and then would move on. Of course, the reason why this becomes significant is because we are in a place where it will be impossible to hold by-elections for the rest of the parliamentary term. However, applying practical common sense, it seems patently inconsistent, and I'm being very charitable, for the same Supreme Court that had no qualms about suspending Kwesi, representing his people for 15 months, that had looked the other way, where the people of Saul had not had representation for the full term of this parliament, to suddenly wake up and be so concerned about representation. It is obvious that their main goal is not representation, it is politics.
The main goal is not about the concern of representation. You see politics at play.
Of course, because if they were concerned about representation, they would have been concerned about it in the Kwesi case. They would have been concerned about it for the people of Santrofia, Apafululubi, and Mipe, and they haven't been. So all of a sudden, this concern about representation rings hollow, respectfully.
Well, but there was that argument by one of the lawyers on this panel this morning that the Supreme Court has the option of exercising discretion to speed up matters of this nature as well. So in your view, did they exercise this discretion fairly, or it was whimsical and capricious as applied to the other cases as referenced?
It was whimsical and capricious and inconsistent. And yes, they have discretion, but that is what Professor Kwekwaza was talking about stable, predictable, fair and impartial application of principles. When the application of principles become inconsistent, and that undermines the reputation of those applying the principles.
So in the matter as we are faced with right now, Parliament has been recalled, again convened on November 7. The fundamental issue has not been dealt with as we speak. So what should be the most considerable option going forward in dealing with this matter? Is it a legal route to the solution or one outside of the courts?
I think the solution lies outside the courts because in actual fact, I have a feeling and I'm very confident that we'll hear from Speaker Babin in detail in the next few days. But remember that at the beginning of this parliament in 2021, he declared that there were no majority and minority caucuses. There were only majority and minority groups. And he has educated me about the fact that since like committee chairmanships and others have been shared almost equally among the parties, I think that the route to having this parliament sit is to actually let them continue as groups and not as majority and minority caucuses, because if he reconvenes and the NDC assesses right to be the majority and the MPP insists on it, he might have to adjourn again. The compromise might be for the two sides to agree to set that aside. And the NDC have a lot of very strong cards because the MPP government has business that it wants Parliament to conduct. And if that business is going to be conducted, it will have to compromise in a way that will let Parliament sit so that the business will be done without this distraction of who is majority and who is minority.
Well, the position that Justice Yao Gao denounced his membership of the MPP when he appeared before the Appointments Committee and Parliament going ahead to eventually approve him, be enough justification for him to have been part of this panel?
I have already said I don't think he should have been part of the panel. But you see, that is where, when people start flexing muscles, funny things start happening. Can Parliament, for example, go back and say that he lied to them and therefore he could be impeached for that, or he could be removed for that? All these are considerations that we must be careful and must try and tiptoe around so that we do not deepen what is an evolving constitutional crisis.
Dr. Arthur Kennedy, I appreciate your first input on this, and please don't go away as yet. On the matter of the constitutional crisis concern, in fact, the Chief Justice espoused the same concern that, yes, indeed, she accepts that we are in a constitutional crisis as we speak. Now, take a look at this.
This is a constitutional crisis. We are living in a country where the parliament is not sitting. What is going on?
I'm not too sure that this is to enable parliament sit. It's to declare.
Very well. Yes, I take it. That's really.
Well, so there you have it. This is the constitutional crisis that we are faced with. And I want to have again, and Professor Jampo, that's just to re-emphasize the point that we cannot go around this matter and not be talking about where the solution lies. Yeah. The Chief Justice knows that this is a constitutional crisis. Just listen again.
This is a constitutional crisis. We are living in a country where the parliament is not sitting. What is going on?
I'm not too sure that this is to enable parliament sit. It's to declare.
Very well. Yes, I take it. That's really in your
so if I would...
Does the solution lie with the courts or outside of the courts? Lawyer Martin Pebo, quickly, before we let.
So it can be both, depending on how both conduct themselves and approach the matter.
Okay.
So I say both because, you see, as I said, I mean, I've already made the same point that Professor Jampo and this Honorable Dafiamepo have made, that I don't think the court handled the matter well. From several angles, the optics, the demeanor, delivery, tone, everything.
The justification of Justice Gao still being on.
Yes, that I've made it very clear. Oh, he's a very fine judge. Oh, in the High Court, yeah, fine. Oh, and very personable. When you meet him, oh, Gao is a nice man. But that's not what we are talking about. Today, we are talking about he's sitting on a matter involving his party. And that one, I mean, how? Me, Pebu, yes. How am I coming to sit here to say something else? No, I'm not sure how to open my mouth.
He resigned.
Oh, but that one...
And that's why you passed him, isn't it? And you're saying his party.
Oh, but his party is correct for a very extended period. We've only been on the Supreme Court for how many months? For all practical purposes, when you say his party, it is correct and final.
It is not correct.
So I mean, from all the angles, this was bad. And so I sit down and I'm like, can't we do better? No, there's a way you could have been very fine about this in a way that would have brought the buy-in of the speaker. Because look, it was so crude. Very, very crude. I'm like, no.
I don't know whether...
Okay, we have a long way to go.
Thank you.
We
have a long way to go.
would have said that, let me recuse myself. I've been... I've seen
example,
so many instances where people... flimsy things have been said. So no, because of that, I'm just recusing myself. Well, I belong to a search panel that was searching, looking for a dean for one of our schools, and somebody wrote anonymously that the chair of this panel.
Don't go into details, please.
No. The chair of this panel knows the wife of one of the applicants, and then. We looked at it. We said, to the extent that it was anonymous, we should just describe it as frivolous. The chair said, no. I'm recusing myself. We pleaded with him. He said no. So I'm thinking that this one, there shouldn't have even been any defense. The man himself, out of his own volition, said, look, I want this matter to be handled clean. And so I am recusing. To the extent that there are so many judges, justices of the Supreme Court, another person could have been brought, so that we would have created that semblance of trying to look out for the well-being of the country.
Okay, so Mr. Okanse, say I still have the floor. In a minute. So this is what Lord Chief Justice Hayward once said, that famous statement. Justice must not only be done, but must manifestly and undoubtedly be seen to be done.
Semblance.
The optics, I don't know. When I heard the ruling of the Supreme Court on that objection, I was like, is this Ghana? I mean, come on, look, you can do better. Okay. Trust me, you can do better. The Supreme Court didn't help themselves when they said this is a constitutional matter, it's not a party matter. I was like, what reasoning is this? Today, it didn't go far at all. The thing is MPP versus NDC. As soon as the Chief Justice said that, there were lay people just seated by me who started turning. I mean, you see, come on, look, let's do better. Yes, who started turning? I was like, why? Because I was like, no, this decision, please. The optics alone even throw away everything. And don't forget, Senor Hosi did very well. He wrote a open letter to the CJ, where he chronicled how trust in the judiciary has plummeted from 65% in 2012 to what? 35% in 2024. Halved. And we're doing this. I'm just like, you see, when you look at how judgeship is done, I keep saying that, anyway, sometimes in 3 days, otherwise, listen, you just keep quiet. You see, sometimes a judge wants to do you in, the judge will tolerate you. Give prominence to your arguments, and this one and that. Okay. All those things, and then finally land softly.
However.
Exactly. But this one, you can just see from day one. It's like we will railroad everything. Like Honorable Dafiame said, you file a case at 12:40, and by 2 p.m., you have a full panel of judges. Look, no, Mr. Kanse, wait till later. When you file a case, when you go to Supreme Court, you go and file a case where the registry is. You see the 1240 that is endorsed on. They've not finished though. When they finish, they now have to open files. Right, even when you are writing the title, when you are writing the title of the case alone. Okay. All right, that's a lot. And you're going to write for what? 5 to 10. Even before you take a decision to open that file. Before you take a decision to open that file immediately, there were calls. Because listen, when you file the thing right now, they put it down, right? And then there are so many procedures. Then you would write, all right? Then go and look for the registrar. Then registrar...
Filing clerks are different from the registrar.
Before you get that date, Master, the labyrinth, so many steps you go through.
There was no date on the motion paper.
Yeah, no. You need to study how things are filed, and you see that speed. That speed raises 1,001 questions.
Yes. I must say that it's been a very rich discussion. Just have a few, not responses because they were not directed at me, but indeed. Comments.
Right.
The issue of, and I was saying it off air, that sometimes it's good to let the public know what has actually happened and then leave the commentary. Then, because if you don't know what has happened and you are just commenting, then it loses the essence of what has actually happened. And so, if you take, for instance, as practitioners, nobody would deny that it was quite unusual for an application to be filed.
Most unusual.
Most unusual. Whatever adjectives you want to put on it.
Use that property.
But for a motion to be filed in the Supreme Court on a Friday and heard on the same day. But there may be a reason why that was not trumpeted in the application to set aside that order. In the application to set aside that order, the fact that it was filed and heard on the same day was not listed as one of the grounds.
I'm sorry, mentioned it.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that it wasn't trumpeted.
It may not have been deposed.
But that is where you need to understand what really went on.
Let me finish. Because even though we as practitioners will admit that it is most unusual, to borrow your word, it is not illegal. So we would have to state that there's nothing in the law that prevents a motion being filed and heard on the same day. It is not, yes. However, from our practice and experience, it is something that it's not done. We've not seen it, especially to see a Supreme Court sit on a Friday. So that in the speaker's in the speaker's motion, he didn't say that set aside the order because it was filed and heard on the same day.
Right.
Now, as to the comparison with the issue of misrepresentation and Saul and what have you, initially I said I didn't have facts. I've gone online to read a few things. That one, we all admit that case is not before the Supreme Court as we speak.
It went to the Supreme Court.
And the Supreme Court delivered a decision.
They sent it back.
Yes. So as it stands now, you cannot blame the Supreme Court that Saul is pending or you've not done anything about Saul. In fact, I read that even the Attorney General, when he wrote a report to Parliament, disagreed with the EC's position. Honorable, you can confirm because yes. This Attorney General said he disagrees with what the EC has done in terms of Saul, and that he has given a way of how he thinks should be done, should be correct, and this was before 2020 elections. So if what he suggested...
No, it was 2 years ago when he became AG. In 2020, he was deputy AG.
Okay, so he gave that opinion but he gave the opinion in 2020.
No.
When I read...
No, it was...
Okay, however it is...
question
that was
by Kofi Adams.
Okay.
Regarding the South...
But what is it...
No, it was 2020.
So after that. Yes, so as it stands now, the Supreme Court, for lack of a better word, is not responsible for what is happening in SAR. Because when the matter came before, and the Supreme Court is not the High Court that entertained the decision. I do not know if those people that were referred to come back to the Supreme Court have filed a new writ. We don't know that. Now, on the issue of sovereignty... Yes.
But to the extent that the CJ was aware that issues and the SAR people, the SAR case...
Was it the CJ in 2020?
No. But in this particular instance, to the extent that they knew that people of SAR had been denied representation, to the extent that the Just Chikwesin incident happened and they said he shouldn't go and represent his... I was expecting that... I was expecting that, you see, these things would have tempered the utterances and the brazen show of his commitment to fight the potential non-representation of people for just 2 months. I was surprised, and you should understand that. You should understand. Were you not shocked? See, the same. We should use the same principles to judge, to judge situations. So that my worry is that, you see, there are perceptions about the courts that are not too good. And if you look at, as he said, various Afrobarometer studies, the perceptions keep going down. And I'm thinking that the judiciary itself should be concerned and should be mindful about what it can do to redeem those sinking image. But if you do some of these, at one point in time you espouse a certain principles, and at other point in time it's like you don't really.
Point well made. Thank you. Point well made. You make your point. Yes. Okay. Yes. Please. Yes. Fair point.
The Constitution, the first page, states that sovereignty resides in the people. The representation of the people is what we have in Parliament. But the Constitution gives, I may not use the political science phrase, but I think supremacy resides in the Constitution itself, not in any arm of government. Fortunately or unfortunately, the same Constitution says that if there is a dispute as to interpreting or enforcement of this Constitution, it is not Parliament or the executive, but it is the Supreme Court. And the Constitution says that if the Supreme Court, in exercising this jurisdiction to interpret the Constitution, gives certain orders or directions to either executive or whoever it is, and that person refuses to comply, if it is the president or the vice, it constitutes high crime and the grounds for refusal. And so this same Constitution, that is the will of the sovereign people of Ghana, has vested that exclusive right in the Supreme Court. We may not be happy how the Supreme Court is interpreting or applying or exercising it, but the Supreme Court is exercising a right or a jurisdiction that the people have given to it. The Supreme Court, in dealing with it matters, the Constitution says that whilst they may be bound by their previous decisions, are allowed to depart from it. That is why, Senator Tebo, you'll agree with me that a word like suspension of court orders is not found in any of the rules of court. However, in Merchant Bank versus similar ways, Justice Atuguba said they must look at the situation and come up with new things that they think will meet the justice of the case. We have never heard the word suspension of court orders, but Justice Atuguba did it. Now, the declaratory decisions, whether they're executable or not, until that Ojedum case, we never could have thought that a mere declaration...
And telecom.
We never would have thought that a mere declaratory statement, Supreme Court can say we are staying execution. We were all surprised.
Your father did it.
We were all surprised. But
thank you.
Yeah, but I'm just landing. Yes, but the fact is that those other matters, we are not complaining about it because the parties are not politicians or they do not have political implication. But as soon as something is done, which is outside the norm, because of the parties involved or the implications, then we say that there are political undertones. Prof, the perception, the judicial service, unfortunately, they don't have a PR session. They do, but I don't recall that they would sit down, organize press conferences to explain some of the things that they have done.
But CG has been doing so.
Press conferences.
In respect of the LGBTQ.
No, so that is what I'm saying. That to be responsible for the perception, some of us who have the opportunities to explain what they have done should, as much as possible, stick to the facts and the law. And then before we can go to the second stage of bringing whatever we think may have influenced the decision. And I have not always agreed with the Supreme Court. I've written lots of articles on decisions that they have given that I think were not done in accordance with what I thought was the law. But it doesn't substitute my opinion and then say that there were political undertones when I don't have evidence of it.
Yes. You see,
whether in and outside of the court, quickly.
That it doesn't have evidence of a political undertone. But there is. It's in the affidavit. The man came...
that influenced the decision.
Yes, but that is the affidavit. The affidavit in support of the application. And it is the affidavit that the court must consider. In the affidavit, Apenyo is saying, I have become a minority. The majority will hold the majority, then minority now, who had become a majority, they will hold parliamentary inquiries against my appointees. They will make us unpopular. The economic situation will become the government cannot handle the economic situation. We are in an election year, so the government will become unpopular. These were the things he deposed to.
Okay.
How else should the Supreme Court be convinced that the matter that has been brought before them is purely politics? Indeed, it's only Parliament. Parliament is the only organ that the Constitution permits political parties to send representatives. If you don't appreciate these things, then you'll be speaking about things happening in Parliament as national interest. No, the the parties have representatives there.
Okay.
Constitution permits us to have representatives and do politics. In fact, you can have a president who will appoint his ministers, they may not appoint his party people. That's the executive. The judiciary, they are not supposed to be partisan.
Okay.
But in parliament, we are supposed to be partisan. So when things are happening in parliament, it's about politics. So when the judiciary wants to interfere, they must have recourse to these undertones and understand that in parliament, it's about partisanship, partisanship, partisanship. That is why they encourage consensus building. If you don't encourage that, there'll be a gridlock, there'll be a breakdown.
Okay.
Now, MPP, this government, they came to parliament, they came to Speaker Agbagbi with an application for Adwa Safo to be removed. Under Article 97(1). See, why? They claim that she absented herself from 15 parliamentary sitting days. Were we not in this country? They came because at that time there was time such that if Adwa had been removed, had been declared to have vacated the seat, there would have been a by-election. They are doing all these things because we are within the 90-day window period that has been shut to conduct or by-elections. They deposed to that fact before the Supreme Court. So when the Supreme Court becomes oblivious of Article 1126, that says that within such a period, constitutionally, a by-election cannot be conducted.
So that's what the CJ said.
No. Afenyo deposed to hold on. Listen to me carefully. Afenyo deposed to that fact. So if the CJ didn't see the angle, the perspective Afenyo is urging, that if you don't shift the political power in parliament, we are doomed. Better to say he has done.
Okay.
Hold on. I'm saying that Afenyo deposed to that fact and quoted the constitutional provision for the court and was telling the court that we don't have the opportunity to organize a by-election.
Yes.
So if you don't reverse the political power shift in parliament, my government is doomed. We are in an election year. We can't govern. There will be inquiries against my people. I am not concocting this fact. These are contained in his own affidavits. And the court now says that because the constituencies that these MPs represent will be denied representation, when the constitution says when any provision is activated under 97(1) within this period, you cannot.
Did you land?
You cannot organize a by-election. So what was the Supreme Court saying?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, because it's less
than 90 days. So there's nothing, whether you add that on the court or not, that is the constitution. It cannot be done. So don't come and argue that before the court.
Okay.
So it was no basis for you to come before us. The other basis for which they came,
You understand what it is?
the other basis for which they came is that the NDC majority will be holding inquiries. Inquiries into what? Into corrupt deals. corrupt deals. And that it will make them unpopular in an election year. And the Supreme Court agrees that, okay, that will happen, so we should reverse the power.
Okay.
So let me conclude by saying there's no crisis. We don't have any constitutional crisis.
Really?
It is the court that is creating the crisis. It is the court that is creating this crisis.
I see.
And the court ought to know that. Because if the court had not interfered, there would have been no crisis at all. Because the constitution provides for these scenarios. In respect of the speaker, the similar provisions. Look at 95. And in 97 for members of parliament. It is only when you say that I have not left the MPP. And I've sent you something. Look at the notice of poll. If your producer can post the notice of poll as we speak.
Have it. Okay.
Cynthia Mamle remains an independent candidate in the 7th December general elections. How do you expect her to belong to the MPP in parliament?
Okay.
The second deputy speaker who came to parliament, you see, let's make the argument finer. The constitution permits you to associate with a group, a caucus in parliament when you are independent. But when you join them formally to be on their ticket, constitution says you must go. Under 97(2), it tells you the circumstances under which, as a member of parliament, When you join another party, you stay in parliament. So the constitution, there's no confusion. The constitution says when there's a merger, when two parties merge,
okay,
you are entitled to remain in parliament.
All right, thank you. Nelson Ross, thank you very much. The notice of poll you.
And final, Supreme Court order. Supreme Court order. You know, in the Yana case, the Supreme Court gave a final ruling.
It's off air. Thank you.
No, it's not off air. The Supreme Court gave a final ruling in the Yana case.
You are not being heard.
But it was not. It was not.
You are not being heard.
You
know that. Being heard.
I think we have done a lot of analysis here. We've gone so far.
Indeed.
And we have said that at the end of the day, Parliament should sit down, have a resolution, go back and work for Ghana.
Right.
The position my learned friend is taking, he's taking us back to before we started and saying that this is the point and this is that. You are going into the discussion of the matter before the court. It is what was done which the court has stayed. Let us respect the court. You have been called back to Parliament. We expect, we Ghanaians, we expect. Whether XYZ, MPP, NDC, whatever it is, we expect that Parliament will begin to function again. Whatever you do, which does not include this loggerhead attitude and stance, let it fall down. That's the reason why we're saying the Council of State has come in here. You were saying that if you're happy, that should, because we should be able to bring things down.
The Council of State that came, do you know that people came? Samuel Kujato, the one who led the Council of State. Do you know who he is?
Now,
Samuel Kujato, do you know who he is?
Now, the moment you start doing is either you're speaking to a certain constituency or you're governing some base, which is not what we expect.
That is wrong.
Okay.
We want you. But you have also now impugned the position of his learned senior Samuel Kujato in coming to do what is needful as a member of the Council of State. Whatever his political persuasion is.
Do you know who he is in your party?
No matter. He's not promoting the SS people.
You understand
your point. That is why you must spread the fear SHS.
Okay.
You understand? So that everyone thank you very much.
Okay,
now,
make your point.
We must calm down tempers. Stop this against that loggerhead, so that you go to Parliament.
Tell the Supreme Court to calm down tempers.
Oh, is that the Supreme Court is aiding you to calm down tempers, so that you can go back. But this stance, it doesn't help anyone at all. And the person who's rather come, if this council said all of that will be chosen by the president. Can you say that because they come in, then they are colored and therefore
they are politically tainted?
Oh no!
Thank you.
They are politically tainted.
That's the point. It is most unfortunate. Most unfortunate.
They have an interest in the matter.
It is, yes, everyone, every single Ghanaian has an interest in this, so that Parliament will work. Every person.
And lawyer Amakwa, Kingsley Amakwa, no, you made your point. I'm back shortly after this quick break. Stay with us after this quick break. Thank you.
Million children have benefited from free SHS. Protect free SHS. Vote Dr. Baumia, #1 on the ballot.
In uncertain times, it can be hard to imagine yourself completing the CIMA professional qualification. But with our new digital-first learning and assessment platform, you can. The CGMA Finance Leadership Programme, or FLP, gives you control over your study progress. The CGMA FLP is a remote-based, self-paced learning platform that lets you qualify from home with online assessments and...
My life wasn't always like this. I worked in a bank and had money in bonds to cushion me for the future. Then, with a stroke of a pen, my life was destroyed. My bank was part of the 420 financial institutions which the MPP government recklessly collapsed, what was to become the life of the workers? No one in this insensitive government cared, and suddenly I was jobless. Their incessant borrowing also led to a debt restructuring program that affected me, and just like that, a significant portion of my lifetime investment vanished. Even worse, my lifetime savings from 30 years of hard work has been rendered useless due to the continuous depreciation of the cedi and extremely high cost of living in the country. Now, look at me. The fruits of my toil and sweat have all gone down the drain because of bad leadership. What to eat with my children is even a struggle. God, help me and the many who share in my pain. Let the wickedness of the wicked come to an end. Change must come.
Vote for change. Vote for John Mahama and the NDC.
What is Esther or Trudy's go-to breakfast choice? Hey! A leopard can never change its spots. What does it mean?
if you plant plantain, you rape plantain, you rape another.
Samini. That is Samini. What is Samini's full name?
Boy.
Boy.
Here to Win shows Sundays at 4 p.m. on TV3. Brought to you by
Kivo 4-in-1 Gary Mix, Heaven Black Mosquito Spray and Coil.
Elevate your Sundays with the ultimate mix of entertainment that will get you moving. Touching stories that will inspire.
When you were going through this,
I have to be a divorce.
Why?
Because it got to a time that I have to choose my life over my marriage.
The latest in current affairs.
If you stop liking my music because of my political affiliation, you never liked my music.
No minister or party person can say that they gave me cash in my time of work and none of them.
Fun games for the whole family.
The Day Show, Sundays at 3 p.m. on TV3.
Brought to you by...
This week on Today's Woman, Gloria Clarissa Odokojiha is our guest.
The best part about teaching for me is to get my students to know what I want them to know.
Okay.
And they turn out to be excellent.
Wow.
I see that in my own children, and I see it in other people's children that have actually turned around.
Right. And the current head of Banking and Finance Department of the Central Business School.
A good leader should be able to have integrity, because your life within should be the life outside as well. If you say you are white, you should be white. Whether in or out, you should be the same.
Make a date this Saturday, 3 p.m. on TV3.
Today's Woman with Cookie Tea shows Saturdays at 3 p.m. on TV3. Brought to you by Vlisco.
5 million children have benefited from free SHS. Protect free SHS. Vote Dr. Baumia, #1 on the ballot.
Encounter the true spirit of prophecy, which is the testimony of Jesus Christ, and awaken to the limitless life of God beyond your wildest imaginations through the power of prophecy with Prophet Elvis Mbonye. Now every Saturday, 11 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time.
Power of Prophecy shows this and every Saturday at 11 p.m. on TV3.
Welcome back to Key Point on TV3. Gentlemen, hold on. We're live as well on 3FM 92.7 and also on a number of radio stations. It's okay. Yes, and we'll stick to that. But let me also let you know this, that this morning I am dressed and clothed by Kogra Clothing. They'll do it for you. Just so you know. I'm clothed by Cobra Clothing. It's the best version of you. Locate them on the Spintex Road, 18 Junction, opposite the Allied Oil Filling Station. Ground floor, same building with the Ghana-made store. Contact Cobra Clothing on the following number, 0244, that's 0244 238 341, 0244 238 341, or on WhatsApp 0500 9099, 0500 9099, or you can call them on 0244 238 341. Choose Cobra Clothing, choose right. I have joining us on this again on this matter, which we're dealing with briefly, is a member of the leading member of the silent majority of UTAG, Dr. Wilson Dabo. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us.
Hey, you didn't add that he's an MPP member.
Okay, well said.
MPP member, so you understand.
Why did you take this part of the silent majority? Who are you? Silent majority of UTAG. Who are you exactly?
Yes, thank you. When we say the silent majority, we more or less are the backbenchers and observers of the activities of UTAG.
I see.
And so, therefore, where we think that is wrong, we try to call to order.
And you called on the leadership to call off the strike?
Yes.
As at the time the strike was ongoing. So, but what is your problem? Hold on. So now that the strike has been called off, do you see any reason in the concern that others have raised that UTAG went on strike for a cause, the fight against illegal mining? Is there any significant progress made so far, Dr. Dabo?
I prefer you call me Wilson Dabo.
Yes.
We must put it on record that we actually had that conviction to go the way we decided to go, based on the fact that we realized UTAG, the action taken by UTAG lacked some level of procedural consensus from day one into the declaration of the strike, and that has been our stage, and therefore we still stand by that. And once they have called off the strike, we believe that they have listened to the majority of UTAG members. And what were we asking for? We were simply asking that they should come back to the drawing board, because the fight against galamsey is not just a strike, but it takes a lot of dialogue and talking to the people who matter in this whole issue of galamsey that's actually destroying our environment. And so, therefore, how long are we going to remain in strike? And we thought that that was a wrong procedure. We thought that that was a wrong action. We asked them to come back so that we will together facilitate the process of dialogue with stakeholders, whosoever that so matter in this, for us to have a conclusive discussion on matters of galamsey in this country.
Professor Hanso Jampo, as a leading member of UTAG.
We don't have a lot of time, but unfortunately the earlier issues have taken the discussions. First of all, because he's a colleague, I didn't know he was coming here, right? Because he's a colleague, I would be charitable. But see, I don't see the basis for describing any grouping as silent majority. When you issued a statement signed by 57 people. Out of the 57 people, 36 were not UTAG members. Out of the remaining that were supposed to be UTAG members, 18 of them issued disclaimers. That you just constituted a WhatsApp group and then asked that they write their names and they are not privy to your intentions, and so they are checking out. And then you compare this, so do the algebra and mathematics. You compare this number to close to 3,000 people that voted. And then you compare you describe yourself as silent majority. I want Ghanaians to just look at this. But the point is this, there's nothing like UTAG went on strike following procedural improprieties. I think that if my colleague here really is following what happens in UTAG, and he knows our constitution, time will not permit me, because just 3 minutes. We should go about reading our constitutions and then go back to look at the reason why or how we even took the decision to go on strike. So close to 3,000 people across the 15 public universities voted. And why did we decide to go on strike? maybe he doesn't know, but let me educate him that, look, in March this year, we decided that we would never be heard only when it comes to matters of our conditions of service. We will take on other national issues to ensure that UTAG also play its role as a countervailing authority, okay, within the body politic. So in March, we brought about this issue of illegal mining, galamsey, irresponsible mining, and how these are leaving dangerous ecological footprints on our environment, how they are causing kidney failures and all that. So, unknown to him, UTAG had met several times. We had issued press statements. We had attempted to meet with government authorities. You call ministers, you call officials, and they don't mind you. Right. Based on that, we issued several statements. That's way back in March. So, in the process of issuing these statements, we not getting heard. Around that same, later on in the year, I think government attempted this sale of SNIT hotels. Okay, and you saw how we all came together to say, government, hands off that. And then so government backed off. Then we, UTAG, listen, we went to organized labor. Not organized labor taking a decision. We went to organized labor, told them that, look, if we have this power to push government away from selling this, then let us marshal that same power to force government, not to make government unpopular, not to make government unpopular and then do the burden of any political party, but let us put pressure on government just to ensure that government will do the needful to salvage, the challenge in which we find ourselves. We went to organize labor, and they bought into the idea. Now, having bought into the idea, in the course of our deliberations and discussions with them, something happened, which I've already explained, and because of lack of time,
yes,
I cannot go there. So something happened. They said they won't do it again, and we said, okay, they jam a coin. I was won't go be more. And then just a okay, we came to court your support, and you said you won't do it again. I said, okay, if that is the case, then we're going to do it ourselves.
Thank you.
And our members all across the country had voted, to support that we should go on that industrial action. And so for anybody, any 57 minus 36 minus 18 group describing themselves as silent majority in comparing with over 3,000 people that voted, I mean, that's not with the greatest of respect to my colleague. That's not, I don't want to say it doesn't make sense, but it doesn't add up.
Okay, so yes, it is the unified front that you are looking for.
Let's see how we can work around. But your attitude was very, very well.
We showed up. We were there. You put us. Lawyer Bobby Bansing, thank you very much.
I wanted to.
This week on Today's Woman, Gloria Clarissa Odokojiha is our guest.
The best part about teaching for me is to get my students to know what I want them to know. Okay. And they turn out to be excellent. Wow. I see that in my own children, and I see it in other people's children that have actually turned around.
Right. And the current head